Chapter 364. The cave that Qin Wenin was in was dimly lit, and the walls of the cave were incomparably sturdy. Qin Wenin had to expend a great deal of energy to inscribe the divine inscriptions. Earlier, at the instant he stepped into the cave, Qin Wenin had already congregated all the energy in his body. His bloodline limit, divine energy, piercing heart bell, and heaven-breaking finger all blasted out at the same time, causing Chen Wang to suffer a disadvantage. Not only that, Chen Wang didn't dare to step into the cave. Qin Wentian's cultivation base was at the 7th level of Yuanfu. In addition to his fiend transformation art and divine energy, his cultivation base was comparable to those at the pinnacle of Yuanfu. Not only that, he had also comprehended a mandate of mandate and innate techniques. Against those at the pinnacle of Yuanfu, as long as they hadn't comprehended a 2nd-level mandate, it wouldn't be difficult for him to kill them. But Chen Wang was different. His cultivation base was already at the pinnacle of Yuanfu. Not only that, he also cultivated the Great Solar Universe art and had the Great Solar Bloodline. In addition to the fact that his 2nd-level mandate was already at the advanced boundary, he could even fight against those who had just stepped into Heavenly Dipper. His cultivation base couldn't be measured by Yuanfu. When fighting against him, Qin Wentian's cultivation base was too low, he had no advantage at all. At this moment, the flames unceasingly gushed into the cave. However, Qin Wentian's feet glowed with a brilliant light as an ancient shield appeared in front of him, blocking the corrosive flames. Abruptly, a sharp sword pierced through the shield, shattering it into pieces. Qin Wentian's countenance was ice-cold as he blasted out a palm strike, shattering the great solar sword. His hands didn't stop moving as he continued inscribing divine inscriptions. Chen Wang, you think too highly of yourself. I'm only at the 7th level of Yuanfu, yet you can't do anything to me. What if one day I break through to the 8th level? And what if I break through to the 9th level? How will you fight against me then? Qin Wentian coldly spoke. At that time, I can easily kill a Heaven's Chosen of the Great Solar Qin clan. Let me ask you, are you not ashamed to call yourself a Heaven's Chosen? Chen Wang stood outside the cave with a frown on his face. His eyes flashed with a cold light as he stared into the cave. He could sense that Qin Wenin was inscribing divine inscriptions. That mocking voice was definitely Qin Wenin intentionally trying to provoke him into entering the cave. At this moment, Chen Wang stopped his attacks and closed his eyes. He knew that everything that happened in here could be seen clearly by those outside. He had failed in his pursuit of Qin Wenin, and most probably, countless people were watching. Those from the Great Solar Qin clan, as well as those from the 36 Transcendent Powers, were all staring at him. Hua Taishu's name had long been spread throughout Grand Xia. As for Chen Wang, the people of the world would only remember him as the number 1, not the number 2. Just like what Qin Wenin had said, if he couldn't even deal with someone at the 7th level of Yuanfu, how could he, Chen Wang, be the chosen of Grand Xia? The king of Chen was extremely determined. Since you want to die so much, I'll fulfill your wish. Chen Wang took a step forward. His body turned into a flaming giant in the magma, and his meridians and bones seemed to have turned into a demonic fiery red color. His eyes shone with the light of the great sun as the great solar universe energy erupted forth. The bloodline of the great solar bloodline circulated within his body, incomparably resplendent, causing the spectators outside to be stunned. Chen Wang was still Chen Wang after all. He was the one with the highest chance of obtaining the top position in the heavenly fate rankings. He stepped out and entered the cave. The spectators outside couldn't see what was going on inside. They didn't know what was inside. Why was Chen Wang so cautious? The flames on Chen Wang's body lit up the cave, and when he saw Qin Wenin inside, a terrifying heat instantly rose up within the cave. Scorch marks appeared on the surface of the ground, as though the earth itself was being scorched. I will kill you first, then devour your ancient luck. Chen Wang's voice was cold, incomparably domineering. Qin Wenin only felt a terrifying heat radiating from his body, as though his entire being was about to combust. Only to see Chen Wang placing one of his palms on the stone walls of the cavern. Instantly, a surge of heat radiated outwards, causing the entire cavern to turn red. Chen Wang wanted to make Qin Wendian regret his actions. Do you feel despair? Chen Wang placed his palms on the stone walls as he advanced forward step by step. Qin Wendian coldly stared at him. The infuriated Chen Wang was even more terrifying than before. The current Chen Wang was truly one of the strongest contenders for the top position in the heavenly fate rankings. Die! Qin Wendian's voice was ice cold. A terrifying storm of sword chi gushed forth, engulfing the entire cave in an instant. That storm of sword chi swept towards Chen Wang, sealing off all possible escape routes. So this is how you want to deal with me? Chen Wang dashed forwards, not retreating, but advancing instead. With a flick of his palm, the great solar sword slashed apart everything as it slashed towards Qin Wendian. Go! Qin Wendian pointed his finger as a terrifying vortex of sword chi gushed forth, wanting to devour Chen Wang's body. Chi-chi! An ear-piercing whistling sound rang out. Qin Wendian only saw the tempest of swords revolving madly, emitting a piercing sound. His last Yuanfu only had half of its astral energy left, and was no longer able to support him in battle. Coughing out a mouthful of fresh blood, Qin Wendian sat there, feeling as though his entire body was about to shatter. He was in excruciating pain, yet his eyes remained fixed on the outside, incomparably cold. Chen Wang, who had rushed out of the cavern, returned to his original state. He was no longer in the form of a flaming body, and was clad in a robe. However, this robe of his was instantly dyed red with fresh blood. The spectators outside were all stunned by the scene before them. Chen Wang had entered the cavern, and after exiting, he was actually so heavily injured? What exactly happened in the cavern? The smiles on the faces of those from the great Solar Qin clan vanished. Chen Wang was in such a miserable state? How could this be? Qin Wendian, he's a fourth-ranked divine inscriptionist. Luo he indifferently stated, her words causing the countenances of those from the great Solar Qin clan to stiffen. That arrogant 7th-level Yuanfu cultivator was actually a fourth-ranked divine inscriptionist? No wonder Chen Wang suffered such a huge disadvantage. The spectators only saw Chen Wang's rage towering to the heavens. He soared up into the air as he howled in rage. Outside the cavern, a voice resounded throughout the heavens and earth. Qin Wendian, if you don't die, how can I rest in peace? I, Chen Wang, am willing to protect all of you from danger. As long as there's someone who is willing to protect this cavern for me, Qin Wendian shall kill that person. Chen Wang's voice reverberated through the air, spreading out in all directions. Not long after, someone actually appeared. This person was none other than the 18th ranker on the Heavenly Fate ranking, Yang Fan from the Star-Seizing Manor. He had always wanted to kill Qin Wendian, and when he heard Chen Wang's words, he immediately rushed over. Yang Fan stared at Chen Wang in the air. Chen Wang actually suffered such a huge disadvantage at the hands of Qin Wendian, no wonder he was enraged. Qin Wendian is proficient in divine inscriptions, I need to force him out. Now that he's injured, the moment he comes out he'll die. Chen Wang stared at Yang Fan as he spoke, you guard this place for me, I'll go look for his friends. Yang Fan knew that Chen Wang was truly enraged when he saw the flames of rage burning around him. He couldn't help but to nod his head as he replied, I'll guard this place. I'll continue to summon more people here. Even if I can't obtain first place in this round, I want him to die. Chen Wang's voice was cold to the extreme. Stepping out, his silhouette vanished in an instant. The words of Chen Wang were heard by Qin Wendian. His countenance flickered with a cold light. He, Ouyang Guangxing, Chu Mang, Fan Lu and the rest all came to participate in the ranking battle. Everyone knew that Chen Wang wanted to use them to force him out of the cavern. Qin Wendian leaned against the stone wall. Beside him were many Yuan meteor stones, which he used to replenish his astral energy. At this moment, with an intention of his will, a medicinal pellet appeared in his hands as a cold light flickered in his eyes. Chapter 365. In the blink of an eye, 7 days passed. Outside of the Vermilion Bird Formation, countless gazes were still focused on the formation, not knowing day or night, not knowing exhaustion. 7 days had passed since the battle between Qin Wenyan and Chen Wang. Right now, the strength of the contenders for the heavenly fate rankings was becoming clearer and clearer. There were many who were already ranked on the heavenly fate rankings, as well as a few dark horses. Similarly, there were many who were destined to be surpassed. Even if they were ranked very high on the heavenly fate rankings, cultivation was like walking against the wind. If you stagnated in the midst of the storm, others would instantly surpass you, or even leave you in the dust. The heavenly fate rankings were no exception. This was also the reason why the top rankers on the heavenly fate rankings were all youths. Because for those who were older, they had already been stuck at Yuanfu for a very long time. Why would they be stuck there for such a long time? Other than the lack of resources, it was also because their comprehension of mandates couldn't reach the second level. If that was the case, they were destined to be surpassed by the later generations. Although it was cruel, this was the natural law of the cultivation world. Currently, the 4 most favored contenders were Chen Wang, Sherpatian, Si Qiong and Zhan Chen. Si Qiong was exceedingly powerful, and Zhan Chen gave off a demonic aura. These 4 should be the strongest contenders for the top 3 positions. Other than them, there were also a few more favored contenders: Qin Jing, Emperor Azure, Yao Jun, Hua Shaoqing, Yan Cheng, Leng Hong, Wang Zhu and Yunmingyi. There were also a few more that were mysterious and unfathomable. For example, the black-robed figure, Mu Feng, Qin Wendian and Mo Qingqing. The black-robed figure and Mu Feng both kept a low profile and rarely provoked others. As long as no one provoked them, they wouldn't even fight for the ancient luck of the vermilion bird. But if someone dared to make a move against them, they wouldn't hesitate to defeat them. Especially for Mu Feng. It was rumored that after experiencing an unforeseen event, his temperament had changed as well. He became cold and ruthless, and those who dared to cause trouble for him all died in his hands. His temperament had become even more suited to the use of poison. As for why no one was able to see through Qin Wendian, it was because in the battle 7 days ago, he actually managed to survive Chen Wang's attack. What was even more shocking was that not only did he survive, he even caused Chen Wang's entire body to be dyed red with blood, causing him to enter a berserk state. With regards to Mo Qingqing, it was extremely rare for her to act. What was even more interesting was that those who met her didn't even try to snatch her ancient luck. Her charm was still as great as ever. Even in this world of cold, no one dared to make a move against her. Such a beauty, it was truly difficult to do anything to her. Hence, Mo Qingqing's true strength was still a mystery even now. Everyone only knew that as the disciple of Luo He, her alchemy abilities were extremely terrifying, and her talent was exceedingly high. Not only that, for those who weren't that strong, they started to gather together. In order to prevent their ancient luck from being snatched away by the more powerful characters, they temporarily formed an alliance. As time flowed by, the number of such alliances gradually increased. This way, even if they met an extremely powerful character, they wouldn't be stripped of their qualifications to stay behind. Hence, a strange phenomenon occurred. The ancient luck of those who stood at the peak of the vermilion bird formation grew more and more. For those who were blasted out, the vast majority of their ancient luck would eventually be absorbed by them. The number of people is getting lesser and lesser. There's only about 500 left. The spectators mused as they stared at the vermilion bird formation. This Chen Wang is plundering the ancient luck, and at the same time, he's also searching for someone. Yang Fan, Sidiper and Hua Feng are actually all waiting outside the cave dwelling, outside of Qin Wentian's cave dwelling. Many people stared in bewilderment at a certain location within the formation. Yang Fan, Sidiper and Hua Feng could all be considered extremely powerful characters. Could it be that they had a grudge against Qin Wenyan? However, since Qin Wenyan didn't come out, they didn't dare to enter the cave dwelling to deal with Qin Wenyan. This Qin Wenyan is so powerful, he actually made so many people wait for him outside. In the direction of the Mystic Maiden Palace, the young and beautiful Xian Exen mumbled in a low voice. She was evidently pleasantly surprised. Qin Wentian's friends weren't bad, especially this Qin Wenyan. After offending the Chen Wang, wouldn't he still have to die? Now that he's hiding inside, the only path left for him is death. After Li Shiyu's ancient luck was plundered, she witnessed what happened next. The middle-aged man who had blasted her out actually had his ancient luck plundered by Qin Wenyan, and was blasted out just like her. Given Qin Wentian's strength, if he had wanted to, he would have been able to save her. Senior sister, you can't say that. What cultivation level is Qin Wenyan at? When he first entered the unmatched realm, you should know that. Now, he's already strong enough to injure the Chen Wang. Even if he's hiding in the cave dwelling, and the Chen Wang and the others didn't dare to enter, it's all because of their incompetence. There's nothing shameful about Qin Wenyan. Xian Xen softly added, Senior sister, you can't bear a grudge just because Qin Wenyan didn't act to help you. Senior sister's strength isn't stable yet, that's why she was defeated and had her ancient luck stolen. Li Xiu was somewhat unhappy that Xian Xen had hit the nail on the head. She coldly snorted, I'm just speaking the truth. Why don't you take a look at your precious fatty? He's still hiding there. Xian Xen found Fan Li's silhouette, as she casually laughed. It's already very difficult for him to reach this step with his cultivation base at the 7th level of Yuanfu. Now that he's focusing on his own cultivation, there's nothing wrong with that. This is called intelligence. No matter what the people in the outside world thought, the people in the Vermilion Bird Formation all guarded their hearts and acted according to their own thoughts. Qin Wenyan continued cultivating in the cave dwelling, and no one dared to enter. Qin Wenyan, didn't you want to have a real battle with me? Now that I'm here, if you accept my challenge, I will definitely kill you. A voice drifted into the cave dwelling. It was Situ Po's voice. Situ Po naturally knew that it was impossible for him to provoke Qin Wenyan into coming out of the cave. However, his voice could disrupt Qin Wentian's cultivation. At the very least, he wouldn't let Qin Wenyan have an easy time. Chen Wang sure is slow. Hua Feng impatiently commented as he stared at the cave dwelling. Chen Wang still hadn't found Chu Mang and Fan Lu? It wasn't a good idea to continue wasting time like this. Luckily, Hua Feng knew his own limits. He knew that it was impossible for him to seize too much ancient luck, and if he did, he would only attract the attention of Chen Wang and the others. Chen Wang has already spread the news everywhere. I'm afraid those within the formation all know that he's searching for Qin Wenyan. There's no need to be anxious, it's only a matter of time. Yang Fan was extremely calm. Although he had broken up with Shu Ruanyu, he still felt extremely unhappy in his heart. Shu Ruanyu wasn't bad, she was beautiful, talented, and had an extraordinary background. He had already made preparations to marry her, but who would have thought that his woman would be abducted by Qin Wenyan? In the Moon continent, the impact on Yang Fan's reputation would be extremely great. Yang Fan's fiancée, the beautiful and sexy Shu Ruanyu, was actually abducted by Qin Wenyan. What would the people of the Moon continent think? This was also the reason why Yang Fan broke up with Shu Ruanyu. Hence, leaving aside the grudges between them, Yang Fan had to kill Qin Wenyan no matter what. Qin Wenyan, you were incomparably arrogant in front of the heavenly steel steps. But now you're like a turtle hiding in a cave, acting like a livestock. Don't you think you're pathetic? Situ Po coldly continued, not only that, your cowardice might lead to the death of your friend. Chen Wang, if he manages to capture your friend, he will definitely not let you off. Infuriate, Situ Po wanted to infuriate Qin Wenyan. Hence, he unceasingly used vulgar words to provoke Qin Wenyan. However, Qin Wenyan still ignored him. He was currently at a critical juncture in his cultivation. Hua Feng stepped forward, arriving at the side of the cave. His gaze was fixated on the interior of the cave as he coldly laughed. Qin Wenyan, tell me, if Chen Wang knew of the relationship between you and Mo Qingqing, do you think he would do something to her? Mo Qingqing was someone from the Pill Emperor Hall, a heaven's chosen, as well as the beloved disciple of Luo He. Even if Chen Wang knew of the relationship between Mo Qingqing and Qin Wenyan, he wouldn't vent his anger on Mo Qingqing. Qin Wenyan understood this point, and so did Hua Feng. However, his words were only meant to infuriate Qin Wenyan. Situ Po's countenance stiffened. What relationship did Qin Wenyan and Mo Qingqing have? Only those from the Hua clan knew of the relationship between them. After all, Hua Xiaoyan had died in the hands of Qin Wenyan because of this. Hua Taishu had already broken through to the second level of Heavenly Dipper, and his status in the Hua clan continued to rise. Hence, those from the Hua clan gave Hua Feng an order to eliminate Qin Wenyan during the ranking battle for the Heavenly Fate rankings. Hua Xiaoqing, on the other hand, wanted to ascend to the top ranks of the Heavenly Fate rankings. This made Hua Feng extremely unhappy. Why did he have to run errands for Hua Taishu? Not only that, it was him, not Hua Xiaoqing. Hence, he wanted to vent his unhappiness on Qin Wenyan, and even more so, he wanted Qin Wenyan to die. Qin Wenyan, Mo Qingqing, is such a peerless beauty. If she were to be humiliated by someone, what would the scene be like? Hua Feng suppressed his voice to an extremely low level, transmitting his words into the cavern so that only Qin Wenyan could hear him. He didn't believe that Qin Wenyan would be able to endure this for too long. Abruptly, a terrifying demonic qi gushed forth, bringing with it an ice-cold killing intent. Hua Feng retreated in order to avoid being ambushed, yet a cold smile could be seen in his eyes. He knew that he had achieved his goal. Qin Wenyan was enraged. As long as Qin Wenyan was enraged and knew his weakness, things would be much easier. He didn't believe that Qin Wenyan wouldn't reveal himself. Within the cave, Qin Wentian's body was enveloped by a terrifying demonic qi. Demons were violent, bloodthirsty, tyrannical in strength, and incomparably exuberant in vitality. The first level of the mandate of demons was demonification, causing one to be closer to a demon, becoming more violent, possessing more strength, and having a more fearsome physique. In that case, what would the second level of the mandate of demons contain? Qin Wentian's rage told him that the mandate of demons was different from other mandates. Because it was the mandate of demons. The second level of the mandate of demons was demonification. Qin Wentian's physique was expanding as his bones transformed. Terrifying cracking sounds echoed from his body, and his eyes gave off a terrifying demonic aura. Qin Wentian's third eye opened as a demonic light flashed past. It was as though a primordial greater demon was staring down at the myriad of living beings. As for the aura radiating from Qin Wenyan, it was already at the 8th level of Yuanfu. His eyes abruptly opened, and within the cave, 3 beams of light could be seen, capable of shaking the souls of those who saw it. Chapter 366. Within the Vermilion Bird Formation, Qin Wenyan encountered Chen Wang, and the two of them engaged in a fierce battle. After Chen Wang was ambushed, he wanted to capture Qin Wentian's good friend to threaten Qin Wenyan out of the cave. As for the actions of Qin Wentian's good friend, Fan Li's goal was very clear. He wanted to break through to the 8th level of Yuanfu. He didn't care what others thought of him. So what if everyone thought he was shameless? With his cultivation base at the peak of the 7th level of Yuanfu, even if he had a mandate at the perfection boundary, it would still be useless. He could only break through to the next level first. Hence, Fan Li continued to cultivate under the rocks by the shore. His body was covered in flames, causing a surge of heat to gush out from his body. However, waves after waves of gigantic waves slammed into him, wanting to extinguish the flames on his body. However, the flames didn't extinguish. The water on his body evaporated in an instant, and the cycle repeated itself once more. Before this, Ouyang Guangxing's cultivation base was already higher than Fan Li and Qin Wenyan. Hence, he was the first to break through to the 9th level of Yuanfu. After consuming the limit break pellet, he stepped into the 9th level of Yuanfu and was currently searching for opponents to fight against. The opponents he faced were all exceedingly strong, and because up till now, those who remained in the Vermilion Bird Formation were all extremely powerful. But this only made Ouyang Guangxing excited. He didn't care if he had any results in the Heavenly Fate rankings or not. He only needed to constantly surpass his limits and grow stronger. Even if he had no fate with the ranking battle this time around, it wouldn't affect him from challenging others in the future, knocking them out of the Heavenly Fate rankings. Right now, many rankers on the Heavenly Fate rankings were doing the same. As for Chu Mang, His heart was even more resolute compared to Fan Lu and Ouyang Guangxing. On the peak of a certain mountain, a gigantic axe was stabbed into the ground. Chu Mang stood there in cultivation, brandishing the astral great axe in his hands again and again. Sometimes he would change his movements, sometimes he would repeat the same action 10 times, 100 times. It was as though he didn't know fatigue, and his axe seemed to glow with a brilliant light. What Chu Mang loved the most were the axes and arrows. Arrows could kill enemies from afar, while axes could cleave mountains and split seas. He gave up on cultivating his third mandate and focused solely on these two mandates. In the unmatched realm, after he was accepted as a disciple by the barbarian king, the barbarian king had intentionally discussed this issue with him. Chu Mang's heart was extremely resolute, and in the end, the barbarian king was extremely supportive of him. Other than strengthening Chu Mang's strength, the barbarian king also allowed Chu Mang to continue walking on his own path. The barbarian king had many cultivation methods, but he didn't teach them to Chu Mang. He told Chu Mang that he was right, as long as you follow your heart, you would be able to continue walking on this path. Even if his cultivation only consisted of one movement, he would be able to break through his limits and reach an unimaginable level. Back then, this was what Chu Wuwei had taught him. Now, he continued to walk down this path with incomparable determination. Chu Mang's axe once again arced through the air. Instantly, a beam of light cascaded downwards from a mountain peak far away. Chu Mang acted as though he didn't see it, as he casually swung his axe once more. This time around, another beam of light could be seen. When Chu Mang retracted his axe, the sound of cracking sounds rang out unceasingly. After which, the ancient mountain peak ahead was actually split apart, leaving behind several terrifying traces of axe marks. Awesome! Chu Mang grinned. After which, he turned his gaze over in a certain direction, only to see two silhouettes currently engaged in combat. A male and a female. These two were none other than Xian Yan from the Mystic Maiden Palace and Yao Jun from the Sky Demon Sect. Xian Yan was ranked number 17 on the Heavenly Fate rankings, while Yao Jun was ranked number 13. This time around, Yao Jun had once again erupted with power. He had comprehended a second-level mandate and was extremely terrifying. This time around, Yao Jun was highly regarded by the spectators. His performance was extremely dazzling. Chu Mang hesitated for a moment before stepping out. This Xian Yan was Xian Xian's senior apprentice sister, while Xian Xen was Fan Li's girlfriend. In addition, Chu Mang's impression of Xian Yan wasn't bad, so it wasn't a big deal for him to help her out. Maybe by doing so, Xian Yan would acknowledge Chu Mang more in the future. At the same time, Chu Mang also wanted to test out his own strength. Xian Yan was completely suppressed. Yao Jun's vermilion bird ancient luck shone brightly as a pair of demonic wings sprouted from his back. Every attack of his was incomparably tyrannical. As though he sensed something, Yao Jun turned his gaze over, only to see Chu Mang's silhouette. His demonic eyes glanced at the shadow of the vermilion bird behind Chu Mang as a demonic light flickered in his eyes. Someone's delivering ancient luck again. Yao Jun coldly spoke. After which, he saw Chu Mang rushing over as an astral great axe cleaved down towards him. There's no need for your help, you aren't his opponent. Xian Yan shouted. If she failed, there was nothing she could say. There was no need for Chu Mang to make a pointless sacrifice. The demon lord raised his hand and blasted out. A terrifying beast roared as it charged through the void. Pucci, that axe seemed extremely ordinary, yet it was as though there was light within it. With a single slash, it cleaved apart the roaring gigantic beast, heading straight for Yao Jun. Yao Jun's countenance abruptly changed as a sharp glint of light flickered in his eyes. His wings flapped rapidly as a golden beam of light blasted down from where he was just a moment ago, causing a terrifying fissure of over 100 meters in length to appear on the ground. Second level. Yao Jun's eyes were extremely sharp. He could tell with a single glance that this was the might of a second-level mandate. Inclining his head, he stared at Chu Mang as the demonic light in his eyes grew even more intense. This time around, the participants of the Heavenly Fate rankings were much stronger than before. Although he hadn't participated in the previous Heavenly Fate rankings, he had seen it before. Although the participants were extremely powerful, the intensity of the Heavenly Fate rankings definitely couldn't be compared to this one. Back then, after seeing the Heavenly Fate rankings, he had put in a lot of effort, fighting his way up the rankings. This time around he was prepared to display his magnificence, yet he didn't expect that there would be so many strong competitors here. Xian Yan also had an expression of astonishment on her face as she cast a deep glance at Chu Mang. Her heart was filled with a sense of desolation. Courting death. The demonic qi radiating from Yao Jun was terrifying as he advanced towards Chu Mang. The two of them clashed madly against each other. Yao Jun's demonic arts were extremely powerful, allowing him to unleash all sorts of powerful demonic beasts. When he transformed into his demon form, his strength was incomparably tyrannical, causing his combat prowess to rise unceasingly. However, Xian Yan discovered that no matter how strong Yao Jun became, Chu Mang was still unhurried as he chopped down with his axe. That feeling was too carefree, it was as though he was chopping firewood. Chu Mang treated this battle as though he was chopping firewood. Every strike of his axe was precise and skillful, giving off a feeling of impenetrability. Occasionally he would grab an opportunity and slash out with his axe, shocking his opponent. The speed of his axe was too fast, and if it struck its target, it would definitely be a sure kill. At the end of the battle, Yao Jun didn't even want to be in a stalemate with Chu Mang. He wanted to break through Xian Yan's defenses and steal her ancient luck, yet Chu Mang still stood unhurriedly in front of Xian Yan like a guardian deity. Nobody could shake him. Xian Yan stared at the broad back view of Chu Mang in a daze. She didn't expect that she would actually need someone to protect her. Finally, Yao Jun's attacks couldn't break through Chu Mang's defenses. With a howl of rage, he soared up into the skies and left, giving up on the idea of seizing the ancient luck. Chu Mang stood in the air with his great axe in his hands, as he turned his head to look at Xian Yan. "Thank you." Xian Yan looked at Chu Mang as she spoke in a low voice. "No need, I'm doing this to help Fan Lu. Your mystic maiden palace shouldn't make things difficult for him in the future. Us brothers won't let your mystic maiden palace lose face." Chu Mang spoke to Xian Yan. If it was in the past, Xian Yan might have looked down on Qin Wendian, Chu Mang and Fan Lu. But after the journey on the heavenly steel steps, her attitude gradually changed. At this moment, Xian Yan didn't know what to feel in her heart. Emichim? At this moment, Chu Mang and Xian Yan turned their gazes to the horizon, only to see two silhouettes walking over. One of them was Yao Jun, and as for the other, his aura was even more violent and tyrannical. It was none other than Chen Wang. In front of him, even the powerful Yao Jun had to submit to him and follow by his side. Chen Wang's eyes instantly locked onto Chu Mang, as a terrifying inferno erupted from his body. His bones and blood vessels once again transformed into a sea of lava as his body solidified, resembling a paragon of fire. How powerful! Xian Yan's beautiful eyes froze as she saw Chen Wang rushing towards Chu Mang. "Leave quickly!" Xian Yan roared in a low voice. Chu Mang's eyes were fixed on Chen Wang as his battle intent blazed. Stepping out, he slashed out with his great axe. Chen Wang was filled with rage, his aura towering to the heavens. He had once humiliated Qin Wendian, how could there be a second time? So what if Qin Wendian had second-level mandates? He was Chen Wang, and his second-level mandates were already at the transformation boundary. If it wasn't for Qin Wendian's sneak attack, how could he have ended up in such a miserable state? His palms blasted out as the great solar universe energy erupted forth. His fiery palms grabbed towards the great axe. Peng! The light from the great axe slammed into the universe palm imprint, causing terrifying flames to splatter in all directions. Chen Wang's countenance stiffened as he felt an intense pain in his palms. Kacha! With a clench of his fist, the great axe began to burn. Chu Mang's arm was also solidified, about to transform into lava. Chu Mang instantly let go of the axe as he retreated with explosive speed. However, how could Chen Wang give him a chance? A beam of light slashed out, causing Chu Mang to howl in agony as fresh blood splattered from his chest. Direction, I don't want your ancient luck. Chen Wang coldly snorted as he blasted out with his palms. With a thunderous boom, Chu Mang's blood gushed out as the flaming palm imprint slammed into his chest. His body was directly slammed into the ground as a fiery palm imprint appeared on his chest. Chu Mang. Xian Yan's countenance was incredibly unsightly to behold. She ran to Chu Mang's side only to see Chen Wang floating in the air, staring down at Chu Mang as he coldly stated, "Your friend Qin Wenyan has angered me and is currently hiding, not daring to meet me. Does he think he can escape just like that? He will pay the price for his actions. Even if I want your ancient luck, I will kill you first." Chu Mang's countenance was ice cold. He stood up as the great axe appeared in his hand once more as he unleashed his astral souls. He would rather fight to the death than die in humiliation. A raging wind gusted as Chu Mang dashed towards Chen Wang. He slashed out with his great axe once more as a resplendent beam of axe light appeared in the air, capable of destroying everything in its path. Is there any use? Chen Wang roared in rage as his palms blasted out in the air. Over there, the great solar universe palm imprint appeared, blocking the incoming axe light. His silhouette advanced as he blasted out another terrifying palm strike onto Chu Mang's body, slamming him into the ground once more. Chen Wang's strength was unfathomable. The spectators sighed in their hearts when they saw this scene. Chen Wang was indeed Chen Wang, unstoppable. However, they had no idea how Qin Wenyan managed to injure Chu Mang. Qin Wenyan had also paid a heavy price to injure Chen Wang. Not only that, Chen Wang had underestimated his opponent. At this moment, Chu Mang's aura fluctuated wildly as fresh blood flowed unceasingly from his body. Xian Yan's countenance turned pale as she stared at Chen Wang. Chen Wang's countenance was as cold as ice as he exuded an intense killing intent, walking towards Chu Mang. Chen Wang's target was Qin Wenyan. If he captured Chu Mang would definitely die. As she thought of this, Xian Yan's heart hardened. The vermilion bird behind her instantly lunged forth, lunging towards Chu Mang's vermilion bird. "What are you doing?" Chu Mang glared at Xian Yan. His vermilion bird ancient luck was also weakened, and was instantly devoured by the vermilion bird. "Impudent!" Chen Wang roared in rage, only to see Chu Mang's silhouette vanishing from his original location. Xian Yan turned her head, calmly looking at Chen Wang. She didn't regret her decision. Chapter 367. Chen Wang felt a sense of foreboding when he saw Xian Yan devouring Chu Mang's vermilion bird ancient luck. But it was already too late to stop her. He glared at Xian Yan and struck out with his palm, causing a deafening explosion to ring out. Xian Yan's body was flung through the air, stained with blood. Her clothes were tattered, revealing her snow-white skin. "Are you courting death?" Chen Wang's voice was ice-cold. He never thought that Xian Yan would dare to obstruct him. "Chen Wang, there's no Hua Taishu in this batch. No matter what, you're still the one with the highest ranking on the heavenly fate rankings. Don't you think it's beneath your status to use such a method to threaten Qin Wenyan?" Xian Yan coldly stated, staring at Chen Wang. "If I want to kill him, I don't care what methods I use. In the ranking battle for the heavenly fate rankings, no matter who interferes, he will die without a doubt." Chen Wang's voice was filled with coldness, incomparably decisive. He had already suffered a disadvantage in the hands of Qin Wenyan twice. How could he give up so easily? Qin Wenyan had hidden himself in the cave to inscribe fourth-ranked divine inscriptions. It was unwise of him to enter the cave, and hence, he wanted to capture Chu Mang or Fan Lu. To him, this was just a trick. "Since you dare to stop me, you will have to pay the price." Chen Wang's voice was ice-cold. After which, he turned to Yao Jun. "Her ancient luck belongs to you, but you have to do something for me. In the future, if we meet again, I won't make things difficult for you." Yao Jun looked at Chen Wang with a strange look in his eyes. "All right." Yao Jun nodded and agreed to Chen Wang's request. Chen Wang told him the location of Qin Wenyan, after which he soared into the skies, departing once more. He still needed to find Fan Lu or Ouyang Guangxing. Qin Wenyan and Xian Yan weren't familiar with each other, and Chen Wang wasn't sure if Xian Yan could force Qin Wenyin to come out. He left this matter to Yao Jun. He believed that since Yao Jun had agreed, he would not dare to disobey him. Otherwise, if they met again in the future, he would make Yao Jun die a horrible death. This was the prestige brought about by great power. Even the powerful Yao Lord had to work for him. Of course, Yao Jun had his own reasons for agreeing to King Chen's request. After Chen Wang left, Yao Jun's gaze swept past Xian Yan. He stared at her alluring skin as he slowly walked towards her. A cold intent gushed forth from Xian Yan, yet she only saw the demon lord coldly speaking. The women of the Mystic Maiden Palace are as pure as ice and as pure as jade. They are suitable for members of my Sky Demon sect. If you dare to resist, I don't mind teaching you a lesson. Xian Yan's face paled as she pointed at Yao Jun. Yao Jun's expression grew colder and colder. If you obediently cooperate, I won't touch you. After speaking, he walked to the side of Xian Yan. Xian Yan's body trembled slightly. Yao Jun's palm imprint directly slammed into her body. After which, he embraced her and soared into the skies, leaving this place. From of Yen of. Xian Yan, a genius of the Mystic Maiden Palace, was actually humiliated in such a manner. This lass is too willful. The female beside Xian Xen was extremely unhappy with Xian Yan. Xian Yan had actually sacrificed herself for Chu Mang. Senior sister Xian Yan is too reckless. Doesn't she know that she represents the dignity of the Mystic Maiden Palace? Li Shiyu added. It's big bro Chu Mang who helped senior sister Xian Yan. What senior sister Xian Yan did is the way to show her gratitude. What's wrong with that? Xian Xen tried to defend Xian Yan, only to hear the voice of the female cultivator in front of her, shut your mouth. Xian Xian's lips twitched, but she didn't say anything. At this moment, Chu Mang was dragged out of the Vermilion Bird formation by the spatial energy. He stood in the midst of the crowd, and the surrounding people all made way for him. This Chu Mang should have comprehended a second-level mandate, and was able to fight against Yao Jun with just a gigantic axe. He definitely had a chance to rank within the top 15 of the Heavenly Fate rankings, yet he was eliminated by Chen Wang. However, Chu Mang still proved himself. Although he didn't stand on that magnificent stage, the Venerate Heavens sect would definitely give him a good ranking. Chu Mang didn't care about all this. He stared at the scene within the Vermilion Bird formation as an expression of rage flashed on his face. Chen Wang, Yao Jun. Chu Mang roared in a low voice. He was filled with unwillingness and agony. Seeing Xian Yan being subdued, he couldn't help but want nothing more than to rush in and fight against Yao Jun again. Qin Wenyin was still cultivating in his cave dwelling. Although he was enraged and wanted nothing more than to rush out and kill the 3 people outside, he still endured it. Because of the transformation of his mandate of demons, he could feel his bloodline trembling. It was as though a gigantic primordial demonic beast was trapped within his body, wanting to rush out and roar in rage. However, he felt that he was still being restrained, and yet, Qin Wenyin could clearly feel the power of his bloodline growing stronger. When the fiend transformation art and the mandate of demons erupted together, the energy stored within his bloodline was even more powerful, gushing into every part of his body. Still lacking a little more. Qin Wenyin could feel that the shackles on his bloodline had been removed. However, there seemed to be a formless energy that caused his bloodline to be unable to unleash its full potential. There was always an obstruction, and he had no way to break through it. Maybe he was still lacking a single breath, but as he grew stronger, success would naturally follow. Yang Fan, Hua Feng and Sidipo were still waiting outside, growing impatient. This Qin Wenyin could really endure. No matter how much they humiliated him, he was still able to endure it. However, this was also because he was smart. With the 3 of them outside, if Qin Wenyin came out, he would definitely die. Naturally, he would hide like a turtle inside the formation. With regards to ancient luck, Yang Fan and the other 2 didn't have much interest in it. It wasn't realistic for them to obtain too much ancient luck. Now that they had a rough understanding of the strength of the participants, Yang Fan and Sidupa set their sights on the top 10. As long as they could enter the top 10, it would already be considered a very good result. As for Orphan, he didn't have any other thoughts. Right now, he only wanted to kill Qin Wenyin to vent the anger and resentment in his heart. Qin Wenyin, do you really intend to wait until your friend dies in front of you before you are willing to come out? Hua Feng coldly spoke, as he walked towards the entrance of the cave. The moment the Qin Emperor appears, I will definitely tell him about the relationship between you and Mo Qingqing. Isn't that woman extremely pure and holy? If that's the case, if the Qin Emperor does something outrageous and humiliates her in public, what do you think the spectators would think? Boom. A terrifying demonic qi gushed forth as Hua Feng explosively retreated. His eyes shone with a victorious smile. Every time he spoke of Mo Qingqing, Qin Wentian's state of mind would become unstable, and he wouldn't be able to cultivate in peace. This was a rule he had grasped. Next, he planned to use even more venomous words to humiliate Mo Qingqing. Let's see how long Qin Wentian can endure this. However, at this moment, two silhouettes drifted over from the air. It was none other than Yao Jun and Xian Yan. Looks of bewilderment appeared on the faces of Yang Fan and the other two, only to see Yao Jun sweeping a glance at them as he coldly stated, "This woman was captured by the Qin Emperor." His original intention was to bring Chu Meng here, but for the sake of Chu Meng, this woman didn't hesitate to offend the Qin Emperor, swallowing the ancient luck of the vermilion bird, allowing Chu Meng to be saved. The relationship between her and Chu Meng shouldn't be simple, right? So this is the case. Hua Feng glanced at Xian Yan as he laughed. The heavens chosen of the mystic maiden palace, Xian Yan, as pure as ice and as clean as jade. Tsk, even your snow-white skin is revealed. How beautiful! Xian Yan, are you in love with Chu Meng? Or are you still a virgin? Hua Feng, you are shameless. Xian Yan couldn't help but to reprimand Hua Feng when she saw the lustful look in his eyes. Shameless? A cold light flickered in Hua Feng's eyes. I'll be even more shameless. This Qin Wenyin doesn't even dare to come out no matter what. He even treated those who humiliated his women as his grandsons. I wonder if I can force him to come out if I strip you of your clothes and allow everyone to admire you together? As the sound of Hua Feng's voice faded, a terrifying demonic qi gushed forth from the cavern, akin to a gust of demonic wind that brushed against their bodies, causing them to feel a chill in their hearts. Light footsteps echoed out from the cavern. Their gazes abruptly shifted over, staring at the cavern. Finally, they couldn't endure it any longer. The smile on Hua Feng's face grew thicker as he coldly stated, "Seems like sometimes we still need to use some underhanded methods." Yang Fan, who was sitting there, opened his eyes as he stared at the cavern. Sidu Po's eyes flickered with a cold light. The grudge between him and Qin Wenyin had to be resolved eventually. Qin Wenyin had to die. A silhouette appeared outside the cavern. The crowd only saw that his physique seemed to have changed. He was taller, more demonic, and his eyes were terrifying to the extreme. He stood there, like a monarch of demons. Even among those from the Sky Demon sect, there wasn't anyone who was as demonic as him. Qin Wenyin stared at Hua Feng. He appeared extremely calm, but if one understood his inner thoughts, they would understand that this calmness was because his rage had reached the extreme and he could erupt at any moment. Qin Wenyin, I need your cultivation art. If not, I will do as Hua Feng said and strip off the clothes of this woman, piece by piece. Yao Jun stared at Qin Wenyin as he coldly stated. There was another reason why he agreed to come here, and that was because he wanted the cultivation art of Qin Wenyin. The Sky Demon sect had long received news that Qin Wenyin had cultivated an extremely powerful demonic art. This art would definitely be extremely suitable for their Sky Demon sect. Hence, when Yao Jun saw that Qin Wenyin was participating in the Heavenly Fate rankings, he hoped that Qin Wenyin wouldn't be eliminated so early. Because he wanted the cultivation art. Qin Wenyin swept a glance at Yao Jun. Just a single glance caused Yao Jun to feel his entire body turning cold. After which, Qin Wenyin continued staring at Hua Feng as he finally spoke. You seem to have forgotten how Hua Xiaoyun died. You will die even more miserably than him. Qin Wenyin stared at Hua Feng as he continued walking forwards, ignoring the others. Hua Feng and the rest were all staring at Qin Wenyin. Where did his confidence come from? Hua Feng's aura surged as his astral souls shone with resplendent light. This man had already broken through to the 8th level of Yuanfu. Seems like if Qin Wenyin wanted to kill him, he would have to be more careful. Yang Fan and Sidupa didn't seem to have any intentions of acting. They were waiting, they wanted to see how strong Qin Wenyin was. As for Hua Feng, what did that have to do with them? Abruptly, a resplendent beam of light erupted forth from the center of Qin Wentian's brows. Hua Feng felt an intense pain in his head, as though a gigantic demonic beast had landed on his head. An expression of agony appeared on his face as his entire body was drenched in cold sweat. Ping Hua Feng howled in rage as he blasted out with his palms. A terrifying amount of energy converged in the air, transforming into a terrifying black-colored palm imprint. Qin Wentian's palm grabbed out, akin to an incomparably gigantic ancient demonic palm imprint. With a thunderous boom, the black-colored palm imprint was destroyed. Hua Feng's countenance paled, howling in rage as he lifted his palms to defend. However, at the instant the ancient demonic palm imprint landed, the roars of countless primordial demonic beasts could be heard. With a thunderous boom, Hua Feng's body was forced to the ground as a terrifying gigantic palm imprint slammed into him. Inclining his head, Hua Feng saw Qin Wenyin standing in front of him, staring down at him. "A cripple like you, where did you get the guts from?" Qin Wenyin was like a demon monarch, lowering his head to stare at Hua Feng. With a swipe of his palms, a scream of agony rang out as one of Hua Feng's arms was forcibly torn off. Fresh blood splattered through the air, causing the hearts of the spectators to pound violently. However, they were actually filled with excitement, as though their blood was boiling. Qin Wenyin, clad in his platinum battle robes, was he going to erupt with power? This was exactly what they wanted to see. Chapter 368. After the battle with Chen Wang, Qin Wenyin had been trapped in the cave, not daring to appear again. Now, the suppressed Hua Feng had finally appeared once again. Not only that, his strength had grown even stronger. He should have broken through to the 8th level of Yuanfu. If not, how could Hua Feng not be able to withstand a single strike from him? After all, Hua Feng was a ranker on the heavenly fate rankings. Being able to reach this step meant that he was already at the peak of Yuanfu. But even so, he wasn't able to withstand a single strike. From this, one could see how terrifying Qin Wentian's combat prowess was. With a cultivation base at the 7th level of Yuanfu, he was already able to injure Chen Wang. Now that he had stepped out of the cave, did he want to vent his anger? It was unknown what Hua Feng had said to Qin Wenyin, but it actually caused Qin Wenyin to be so enraged. One of Hua Feng's arms was ripped off by Qin Wenyin. This was clearly torture. Qin Wentian's palms were akin to the arms of a demon. He stared at Hua Feng as Hua Feng turned around and faced him. His feet were planted firmly on the ground as his body leaned forward. At this moment, an intense sense of fear could be seen in his eyes as he stared at Qin Wenyin. Yao Jun, Yang Fan, Sidupa and the rest all felt their hearts trembling. They could clearly feel the flames of rage burning in Qin Wentian's body. "I'm from the Hua clan." Hua Feng stared at Qin Wenyin. The him now was actually so pitiful that he could only use the Hua clan to threaten Qin Wenyin. Qin Wentian's palms grabbed onto Hua Feng's other arm. The demonic look in his eyes was so cold that it pierced into the bones. "No!" Hua Feng madly shook his head. A tearing sound rang out, accompanied by a blood-curdling scream. Hua Feng's other arm was ripped off. His entire body convulsed in pain, and his heart was filled with incomparable despair. "This is the price you have to pay for saying those words." Qin Wentian's palm descended. Under Hua Feng's despairing gaze, Qin Wentian's palm slammed into his face. Hua Feng's head exploded as he died without a complete corpse. Qin Wentian's reverse scale wasn't something that could be touched. Ever since the first time Hua Feng humiliated Mo Qingqing, Qin Wenyin had already treated him as a dead man. It was just that only now did the flames of slaughter erupt forth from his heart. He actually killed Hua Feng. The hearts of the spectators trembled. Those from the Hua clan all had ashen expressions on their faces. Hua Feng could be considered a genius of their Hua clan, yet he was actually killed without the slightest bit of resistance. Not only that, he was brutally tortured to death. The ancient luck behind Hua Feng was devoured by Qin Wentian's purgatory vermilion bird. Yang Fan, Sidupe and the rest stared at Qin Wentian as they inched closer to Yao Jun. At this moment, Qin Wentian gave them an intense sense of threat. If they couldn't deal with him alone, they would have to join forces. If not, if they were defeated, the demonic rage of Qin Wentian would be akin to what he did to Hua Feng, killing them all. Yao Jun's countenance also turned heavy. He didn't expect that a cultivator at the 8th level of Yuanfu would be able to give him such immense pressure. At this moment, Qin Wentian's demonic form was extremely terrifying. His life force was even more terrifying than that of a true demonic beast. He had the combat talent of a human, but also the offensive and defensive capabilities of a demonic beast. Such a perfect fusion caused the hearts of the spectators to tremble in fear. Qin Wentian swept a glance at the three of them as an astral soul appeared above his head. A demonic beast astral soul. Dragon head, lion body, snake tail, rock wings, Xuanwu scales, and Kirin claws. Demon sovereign astral soul. Yao Jun from the Sky Demon sect was extremely familiar with demonic beast astral souls. With a single glance, he could tell that this was the number 1 astral soul in the War Beast Index, the Demon Sovereign Astral Soul. Not only did it contain a terrifying amount of demonic energy, it also had the ability to summon. Terrifying astral light shot up into the skies. The vermilion bird formation wouldn't block the astral light, or it would restrict the power of the astral souls of the combatants. The astral light emanating from the demon's sovereign astral soul grew increasingly resplendent as demonic astral light cascaded downwards, after which a deafening boom rang out as the earth trembled. Beside Qin Wentian, a terrifying primordial ape appeared. It had a golden body, and its entire body shone with a terrifying golden light. Golden primordial ape, ranked number 3 in the War Beast Index. It possesses boundless strength and unparalleled defense. Yao Jun's countenance grew increasingly unsightly as he stared at the summoned demonic beast. This summoned golden primordial ape exuded an aura at the peak of the 9th level of Yuanfu. And at this moment, a blood-colored light flashed as a terrifying blood-colored demonic beast floated in the air, coldly staring at the crowd. Crimson Blood Thunder Hawk, ranked number 5 in the War Beast Index. Yao Jun's countenance turned ashen. The Crimson Blood Thunder Hawk also had an aura at the peak of the 9th level of Yuanfu. And this wasn't the end. One after another, demonic beasts descended from the skies, a feast for the eyes. Blue-scaled Flood Dragon. Silver-armored Bear King. Silver Rock. Around Qin Wentian, 5 terrifying demonic beasts appeared. Instantly, a terrifying demonic chi enveloped the entire space. Yang Fan and Sidupe's hearts started to waver. These 5 demonic beasts were all at the peak of Yuanfu, and the demonic chi they exuded was terrifying to the extreme. How terrifying was this formation? With a sharp screech, the Crimson Blood Thunder Hawk soared through the air with lightning speed, aiming for Sidupe. The Crimson Blood Thunder Hawk excelled in speed and lightning. A blood-colored light flashed, leaving behind only a single beam of blood-colored light. Sidupe released his astral souls, as the astral rock armor appeared around his body. The life extinction sword appeared as he slashed out with no hesitation. Ping! The lightning-fast Crimson Blood Thunder Hawk collided with Sidupe once more, the resulting impact causing Sidupe to be forced backwards. Yet another flash of blood-red light flashed. The silvery rock's silhouette could no longer be seen. At the same time, the silvery rock howled in rage as it lunged towards Sidupe. 2 demonic beasts with lightning-fast speed instantly placed Sidupe in a dangerous situation. Boom! A thunderous sound rang out as Sidupe's body was flung through the air. The astral rock armor on his body shattered, and an expression of terror could be seen in his eyes. How could these demonic beasts be so powerful? Not only did they have their own abilities, but they could also summon the will of their master? The golden primal ape moved towards Yang Fan, while the blue-scaled flood dragon and the silver-armored bear king lunged towards Yao Jun. Qin Wenyan stood there, watching everything unfold as he used his overwhelming will to control the 5 demonic beasts. Yang Fan's astral souls erupted forth, and the star-seizing palms he unleashed were even more terrifying than before. The will of his second-level mandate finally erupted forth, clashing against the golden primal ape ranked number 3 in the Warbeast Index. The star-seizing palms contained boundless might. The golden primal ape howled madly as it slammed out with its golden palms, shattering the star-seizing palms. The terrifying might of the impact caused Yang Fan to be flung through the air. How could he be so powerful? The spectators were all deeply shocked by this scene. Qin Wenyan had used his demon sovereign astral soul, which was ranked number 1 in the Warbeast Index, to summon astral warbeasts. Each and every one of the astral warbeasts contained a towering amount of demonic qi. The golden primal ape had directly sent Yang Fan flying. With such combat prowess, how high would Qin Wenyan's ranking be? At this moment, no one dared to speculate about the top 100 or the top 36 rankings. They had already determined that Qin Wenyan's strength had surpassed the top 10 rankings, and he was now a terrifying existence that could contend for the top 10 rankings. He would stand shoulder to shoulder with those who were favored the most, contending for the most dazzling positions. The one who was the most shocked was undoubtedly Yao Jun. He had once wanted to form an innate link with an astral soul, but in order to do so, it required an extremely strong perception. He was very clear that summoning-type astral souls were extremely monstrous. The stronger the summoner, the more terrifying the astral warbeasts would be. With the demonic qi radiating from Qin Wenyan, he was simply too suitable for summoning astral warbeasts. Each and every one of the astral warbeasts seemed to have inherited his terrifying demonic qi. "Aren't you afraid that I will act against her?" Yao Jun stared at Qin Wenyan as he held onto Xian Yan, only to see Qin Wenyan's silhouette slowly floating in the air. His demonic gaze swept over Yao Jun as he coldly stated, "Release her and scram. I won't pursue your matters." Yao Jun stared at Qin Wenyan, who was floating in the air. That devilishly handsome young man was currently looking down at him with an incomparably domineering attitude, as though as long as he willed it, he would be able to kill Yao Jun. Such a feeling was extremely unbearable. But when Yao Jun saw how powerful the 5 astral warbeasts were, he felt that Qin Wenyan already possessed such terrifying strength. If he really acted against Xian Yan, he would definitely become a blood feud with Qin Wenyan. Staring at Qin Wenyan for a long time, Yao Jun's heart wavered. That pair of demonic silhouettes caused him to feel a deep sense of trepidation. Loosening his grip on Xian Yan, Yao Jun's silhouette flickered as he sped away, causing the spectators outside to be stunned. Not only did Yao Jun retreat without a fight, he even released Xian Yan. They couldn't sense Qin Wenyan's aura directly, but Yao Jun could sense it. What did this mean? Xian Yan was also deeply shocked. A single sentence from Qin Wenyan was enough to make Yao Jun release her. How strong was this demonic silhouette in front of her? The other 2 astral warbeasts surrounded Yang Fan and Sidupa. Yang Fan's attack power couldn't even be compared to a golden primal ape. How could he endure the encirclement? At this moment, he wanted to escape, but he discovered that he had already lost the opportunity to do so. As for Sidupa, he was in an even worse state. The astral rock armor had long been shattered, and the crimson blood thunder hawk and silvery rock seemed to be playing tricks on him. His entire body was already dyed red with blood. As for Qin Wenyan, from the moment he stepped out of the cave, he had only targeted Hua Feng. The Yang Fan in front of him, back in the Moon Continent, had looked down on him with unexcelled arrogance. In the unmatched realm, Sidupa was incomparably domineering. Even after Sidupa was defeated on the heavenly steel steps, Sidupa still had the intention to kill him. But now, Qin Wenyan didn't even need to act personally, and he could already cause them to be in an extremely miserable state. "Qin Wenyan, do you dare to fight me head-on?" Sidupa roared in rage. As the sound of his voice faded, the crimson blood thunder hawk and silvery rock hovered around him, while Qin Wenyan slowly advanced, staring at Sidupa. Staring into Qin Wentian's eyes, Situpa actually felt a trace of fear in his heart. Stepping out, Qin Wentian stepped toward Situpa. Situpa's aura frenziedly erupted as his 3 astral souls appeared, amplifying his attacks. An incomparably terrifying sword might gushed forth from his body, as though it wanted to destroy everything in its path. However, Qin Wentian stabbed out with a single finger. That casual finger of his seemed to be able to break through everything, penetrating through the boundless sword might. Situpa howled in rage as he slashed out with his sword light, yet he was unable to block the might of that single finger. Puchi! A light sound rang out as Qin Wentian's finger directly penetrated through the center of Situpa's brows. It was as though he had materialized out of thin air, as though he was in a dream. The sword chi around Situpa continued whistling, yet his eyes gradually turned lifeless. Was he, Situpa, going to die just like that? He wanted to fight, yet he discovered that a single finger from Qin Wentian was more than enough to kill him. Chapter 369. Situpa, a heavens chosen from the Sword Extinction sect, died under a single finger strike from Qin Wentian. The pitiful Situpa's talent was outstanding, and he had once obtained the rights to cultivate among the 36 cultivators in the unmatched realm. Not only that, he had just broken through to the 9th level of Yuanfu not too long ago. Sadly, Situpa met an even more monstrous talent than him, Qin Wentian. Back then in the unmatched realm, Qin Wentian had a conflict with Yu Bingying from the Azure Emperor Palace. Situpa was extremely proud in front of Qin Wentian, and at that time he was indeed capable of suppressing Qin Wentian. It was just that the old man from the unmatched realm had interfered, forcing them to fight on the heavenly steel steps instead. On the heavenly steel steps, Situpa had lost to Qin Wentian and was expelled from the unmatched realm. Because of this, Situpa's heart was filled with killing intent towards Qin Wentian. But today he had already lost his life. Although the ranking battle of the Heavenly Fate rankings was incomparably cruel, generally speaking, the participants were all from the various transcendent powers and wouldn't be too ruthless. But Chen Wang, Situpa, Yang Fan, and Hua Feng had gone too far. They wanted to force Qin Wentian to his death, using all sorts of methods to force him to walk out of his cave and die. They even used all sorts of venomous words to infuriate him. One could only imagine the killing intent in Qin Wentian's heart. He had finally walked out of his cave, but he didn't do so just to die. First, he tortured Hua Feng to death, and after that, he forced Yao Jun to release Shen Yan with a single sentence. Finally, he slaughtered Situpa in a domineering manner. All of these scenes shocked the spectators. Qin Wentian's rise was too fast. Ever since the first round of the ranking battle, he had always been displaying his brilliance. It was only because his cultivation base was too low that he wasn't looked upon favorably by others. But now, Qin Wentian's cultivation base was already so low that people could ignore it. Of the 4 rankers on the Heavenly Fate rankings, they either died or fled. What else could be more convincing than this? Just the astral war beasts he had summoned were more than enough to sweep away any ordinary ranker on the Heavenly Fate rankings. In the external world, amidst the crowd from the Azure Emperor Palace, Yu Bingying's countenance was as pale as paper. Situpa had died. She would never forget the reason why Situpa had a grudge with Qin Wentian. It was all because of her. She was arrogant. She wanted Qin Wentian to meet with her, and because of that, Lin Haoyan and the rest had forcefully interrupted Qin Wentian's cultivation, causing Qin Wentian to have a grudge with him. This wasn't a big deal at first, but it gradually changed until Situpa's death. She was truly flustered and scared. Although Qin Wentian might not remember her existence, Situpa was the man she had high hopes for, and now he had fallen just like that. Those from the Sword Extinction sect, Hua Clan, and Star-Seizing Manor all had extremely unsightly expressions on their faces. This made everyone understand that this time around, Qin Wentian had completely offended these major powers. Although the battle between juniors depended on one's own strength, in such a situation where Qin Wentian had domineeringly slaughtered all of them, it was impossible for these major powers to send experts to avenge Qin Wentian. But even so, they wouldn't give up just like that. They wouldn't allow Qin Wentian to live a carefree life unscathed. Qin Wenin naturally understood this as well. However, under the circumstances where the other party was forcing him, how could he endure it? Or could it be that if he retreated, these major powers would no longer make things difficult for him? Qin Wenin shifted his gaze onto the last person, Yang Fan. This was a heaven's chosen that had never treated him seriously in the moon continent. I'll give you my ancient luck. Yang Fan's countenance paled. Currently, with 5 astral war beasts surrounding him, Yang Fan felt despair in his heart. In such a situation he wouldn't even be able to escape. Too late. Qin Wenin calmly stated. The golden primal ape stomped on the ground, howling as it blasted out a terrifying golden palm imprint. The crimson blood thunder hawk was like a bolt of blood-red lightning, its razor-sharp wings slicing towards Yang Fan. The silver-armored bear king roared in rage as it rushed out. Not to mention Yang Fan, even the spectators watching from the outside felt their hearts trembling. The current Yang Fan had no path to heaven, no path to hell. Qin Wenin floated in the air, his demonic eyes staring at Yang Fan being devoured bit by bit. Screams of agony rang out as Yang Fan was smashed into a corpse. Although he was a heaven's chosen from the star-seizing manor of the moon continent, at the moment of his death, he was nothing more than an ordinary corpse. The purgatory vermilion bird in the air above Qin Wenin swooped down, devouring Yang Fan's ancient luck. At this moment, above Qin Wentian's head, a third vertical line of light was about to take shape. This indicated that his vermilion bird's ancient luck had already eliminated over 20 people. Although not all of them were eliminated by him, some were defeated by Yang Fan, and some were eliminated by Sidupe, all of them were gathered above his head. Inclining his head, Qin Wenin stared at the horizon. Chen Wang. Qin Wenin murmured, as a demonic light flashed in his eyes, exuding an unexcelled sharpness. Since you want to be the top ranker of the heavenly fate rankings so badly, let's fight for it. As the sound of his voice faded, the armored bear king leapt onto the back of the crimson blood thunder hawk, howling in rage as it sped away. The blue-scaled flood dragon king mounted the silvery rock, its silvery light arcing through the skies. The golden primal ape stomped on the ground. Each step it took seemed as though it covered a boundless distance, disappearing from Qin Wentian's vision in the blink of an eye. The 5 astral war beasts flew off in 3 different directions. Qin Wenin stepped out, whistling through the air as a terrifying demonic wind kicked up in the air. Xian Yan inclined her head, staring at the disappearing silhouette of Qin Wenin as her heart pounded violently. Exhaling a turbid breath, a bitter smile appeared on her face. Qin Wenin and the others had grown too fast, so fast that Xian Yan felt that she was nothing more than a mediocre cultivator. Within the Vermilion Bird formation grounds, the competition for ancient luck grew more and more intense. The number of participants remaining also grew stronger, but as the number of participants decreased, the chances of them encountering each other decreased as well. At this moment, Longqing was leisurely strolling through a stretch of flat ground, extending his perception outwards. Although he was ranked number 20 on the Heavenly Fate rankings, he was still extremely cautious. The ranking battle this time around wasn't a calm one. There were too many outstanding characters. Not long ago, he personally witnessed a beautiful maiden defeating a character ranked higher than him. At this moment, Longqing furrowed his brows. What was going on? Why did he feel the earth trembling? Not only that, the tremors grew more and more intense, causing Longqing's countenance to change. Shifting his gaze in a certain direction, he saw a terrifying demonic beast with a golden body galloping over, causing the earth to tremble with every step it took. Is that a golden primal ape? Longqing's heart pounded. How could there be a demonic beast here? Why would there be a demonic beast without ancient luck in the Vermilion Bird formation grounds? What was going on? The golden primal ape rushed over, and in just a few steps, it was already in front of him. With a roar, its palm was akin to an ancient golden mountain, slamming down with a terrifying might that caused people to feel a sense of suffocation. That surge of might was so powerful that it was shocking. Ranked number 3 in the Warbeast Index, its attack and defense were both near perfect. Not only that, it possessed the mandate of force and mandate of demons. How terrifying would the golden primal ape be? With a single slap, it felt as though the heavens were about to collapse. Longcheng gathered all his strength and blasted out, yet he was directly smashed into the ground. This was the absolute suppression of strength. The golden primal ape grabbed Longcheng in its left palm as it continued sprinting forward. "Vile beast, release me!" Longcheng howled in rage. When had he ever felt so stifled before? However, as the sound of his voice faded, the gigantic palm of the golden primal ape increased in strength. Instantly, Longcheng let out a miserable shriek, not daring to roar anymore. His countenance turned ashen as he stared at the golden primal ape in rage. This bastard, how dare he, where in the world did this demonic beast come from? Longcheng felt incomparably stifled in his heart. Not long after, the golden primal ape and Longcheng found another person, Ning Ming. This person was ranked number 30 in the heavenly fate rankings, and was also an extremely powerful character. However, in front of the golden primal ape, he didn't have much resistance. Without a second-level mandate, it was impossible for him to fight against the golden primal ape. The ending was as expected. Ning Ming's fate was the same as Longcheng's. The two of them were held together, their bodies pressed against each other as blood flowed from their faces. To think that they were actually humiliated by a beast. In the blink of an eye, 7 days passed. It was getting harder and harder to obtain ancient luck, but the extreme scenes were even more obvious. The strongest group of people were getting more and more terrifying, and the amount of ancient luck they gathered was also increasing. Chen Wang, Sherpadian, and the rest, the vermilion birds hovering in the air, were all about to transform into true vermilion birds. Flames coiled around their bodies, incomparably terrifying. Zhan Qin, Emperor Azure, Wang Ju, Yan Cheng, and the rest were still as domineering as ever. Si Qiong, Qin Zheng, Leng Hong, Hua Shaoqing, Yun Mingi, and the rest were still the dark horses, advancing unceasingly. It was as though no one could obstruct their path. However, during these days, the person who attracted the most attention wasn't Chen Wang, nor was it Sherpadian, nor was it the dark horse Si Qiong. Instead, it was a character that couldn't be ignored, Qin Wenyin. Within the vermilion bird formation, an extremely shocking scene was currently unfolding. The golden primal ape, crimson blood thunder hawk, silvery rock. The 5 astral war beasts were all speeding towards the same direction. In the palms of the golden primal ape, there were several silhouettes clenched within. The claws of the crimson blood thunder hawk and the blue-scaled flood dragon could also be seen. These people howled in anger and unwillingness, but it was all useless. The astral war beasts didn't kill them, they were merely capturing them as they sped towards the same direction. Finally, all the astral war beasts gathered at the same location, below a gigantic boulder on the peak of a mountain. On the boulder, those people inclined their heads as they stared in awe. Over there was actually a silhouette clad in a platinum battle robe. It was none other than Qin Wenyan. This young man, who was once at the 7th level of Yuanfu, was now standing atop a gigantic boulder, exuding an incomparably demonic aura, akin to a monarch peering down at the world with disdain. His aura was extremely terrifying. Not only that, they discovered that other than the astral war beasts that captured them, there were also other astral war beasts present. These astral war beasts were all here to pay homage to Qin Wenyan. Qin Wenyan was like their king. So it turned out that these astral war beasts were actually controlled by Qin Wenyan. I want ancient luck. Qin Wenyan's demonic eyes stared downwards. After which, the purgatory vermilion bird pounced forth, devouring the ancient luck. Those people felt incomparably sullen, yet there was nothing they could do. The impact of this scene was too great. Even after many years, they wouldn't be able to forget this legendary character of Grand Xia. Many years ago, during the ranking battle of the Heavenly Fate rankings, he stood atop a gigantic boulder, staring down at them with disdain, seizing their ancient luck. Chapter 370. The scene within the vermilion bird formation also shocked the spectators. The silhouette atop the gigantic boulder on the mountain peak stared disdainfully at the numerous experts. Who else in the world would have the courage to do such a thing? In the air, the experts from the various transcendent powers were seriously scrutinizing Qin Wenin. Up till now, this young man's performance wasn't in any way inferior to Chen Wang, Shirpadian, and the others. His eyes gleamed with a demonic light, and his entire body was enveloped in demonic qi. Old man Tianji's countenance sharpened as he stared at Qin Wenin. He had been observing the fate of Grand Xia and saw that the demonic star had risen up in the past few years. Now, it had already arrived at Ginkgo and was even here to participate in the ranking battle. He had always been paying attention to who would be the demonic star. At this moment, it seemed that Qin Wenin was the most suitable candidate. Could he be the demonic star that could change the fate of Grand Xia? At this moment, Qin Wentian summoned demonic beasts once again soared into the air, as though the astral energy within them hadn't been depleted yet. As for Qin Wenin himself, he sat cross-legged atop the gigantic boulder, as though everything happening in the outside world had nothing to do with him. He didn't forget to cultivate even when he was seizing the ancient luck. The battles within the Vermilion Bird Formation grew more and more intense, but the number of collisions gradually decreased. Only when there were less than 360 participants did the crowd realize that the ranking battle this time around was different from the past. Indeed, the fate of Grand Xia is changing. Old man Tianji sighed, his words causing the eyes of those beside him to stiffen. It's really changing. How many participants will the Vermilion Bird Formation select this time around? An expert from the Great Solar Qin clan calmly commented. If the fate of Grand Xia were to change, and the number of participants chosen by the Vermilion Bird Formation decreased, it would mean that the ancient luck of the remaining participants would be stronger and stronger. As time passed, the number of participants would increase, and the ancient luck of the remaining participants would all be absorbed by the remaining participants. Look over there, Chen Wang actually used his ancient luck to split open a part of the Vermilion Bird Formation. Even the skies were dyed red. At this moment, the gazes of the crowd were focused on a certain location, the location where Chen Wang was located. Below him, the earth had split apart as lava gushed out, as though a volcano had just erupted. Over there was even a stairway leading to the lava. Chen Wang's eyes gleamed with sharpness, incomparably agitated. At the same time he was seizing the ancient luck, he was also searching for Fan Lu and Ouyang Quangsheng. However, he didn't manage to find them. He stepped forward and walked down the stairs that led to the magma underground. Chen Wang's figure disappeared from everyone's line of sight. There was magma beneath the cracked ground, but only Chen Wang knew what was inside. The members of the Great Solar Qin clan all had excited looks on their faces. As expected of the Great Solar Qin king, his ancient luck had finally appeared. As time continued to pass, the number of people remaining in the Vermilion Bird Formation became fewer and fewer. Furthermore, those who were able to remain were constantly becoming stronger and stronger. Ouyang Quangsheng had also comprehended a second-level mandate, becoming an existence that could stand shoulder to shoulder with Ouyang Zheng. This scene caused the members of the Ouyang aristocrat clan to be filled with joy. Although Duan Qingshan's death caused them to be extremely depressed, Ouyang Quangsheng's status in the Ouyang aristocrat clan was even higher. Now that he had successfully surpassed Duan Qingshan, taking over his position as a heaven's chosen, Ouyang Quangsheng's status would only grow higher and higher. When Ouyang Ting saw this scene, her face turned pale. Everything that had happened was like a dream. The enemy who killed Duan Qingshan, Qin Wenin, grew stronger and stronger. And now, Ouyang Quangsheng had also reached the same level. This made Ouyang Ting understand that her plan of using the Ouyang aristocrat clan to avenge Duan Qingshan was completely hopeless. With Ouyang Quangsheng's current status, how could she still dare to touch his friends? Now, she could only hope that Qin Wenin would die in the heavenly fate rankings, in the hands of Chen Wang. Shirpadian has also found his ancient luck. He used it to open up a passageway to a mountain range and entered it. The hearts of the spectators trembled as they witnessed the scene within the Vermilion Bird Formation. What exactly would happen in the Vermilion Bird Formation this time around? Si Qiong, the same as Chen Wang and Shirpadian, was the third to find his own ancient luck. It was as though, as long as enough ancient luck was gathered, the vermilion bird spirit would be born and lead them to the ancient luck that belonged to them. The number of participants in the vermilion bird formation grew fewer and fewer than 100. The remaining participants all had terrifying amounts of ancient luck, and the vermilion bird behind them seemed to have come to life. Those who had been eliminated froze when they saw the situation within the vermilion bird formation. They couldn't help but lament in their hearts that they had missed out on such a rare opportunity. Zhang Chen is truly powerful. He has always been low profile, but now he has finally found the ancient luck that belongs to him. The shock in the hearts of the spectators was indescribable. How could there be so much ancient luck this time around? This was something that had never happened before, and it had actually happened in the heavenly fate rankings. After that, it was Emperor Azure and Qin Zheng. And after that, it was Yun Mingyi and Mu Feng. Si Qiong, Qin Zheng and Yun Mingyi were undoubtedly the dark horses of the vermilion bird formation. Eight of them have already found their ancient luck. From this point onwards, it seems like we'll be able to see the strength of the remaining participants. These 8 might very well be the strongest. But of course, there are still a few other variables. Qin Wenyan, Wang Zhu, Hua Shaoqing and Yan Cheng. This batch of participants should be contending for the top 10 positions in the heavenly fate rankings this time around. Yao Jun had already chosen to retreat when facing off against Qin Wenyan, and he didn't have the qualifications to be ranked within the top 10. At this moment, Qin Wenyan had also gathered a large amount of ancient luck. Under the effects of the astral war beasts, the purgatory vermilion bird behind him had already completely solidified. 9 vertical lines could be seen on its forehead, exuding a terrifying aura. Not only that, this purgatory vermilion bird exuded a terrifying aura at the 9th level of Yuanfu. Qin Wenyan could faintly sense that his ancient luck was already saturated. There was no need for him to continue seizing ancient luck. His eyes were still closed as he sunk into a deep slumber. This time around, he had been in a deep slumber for a very long time. In his dreams, he could see many scenes, and he was seriously immersed in his own dreams. Back then, he had coincidentally met the green-robed middle-aged man. His dreams were filled with life, and it was as though everything was real. Who knew if he was awake or dreaming? The distance between heaven and earth, a single thought. Illusory and real, a single thought. True and false, a single thought. A light breeze brushed past Qin Wentian's robes, causing him to feel a sense of coolness. The astral war beast was squatting quietly beneath his feet. As long as the astral energy wasn't exhausted, the summoned astral war beast wouldn't vanish. Back then, during the crisis in Sky Harmony City, Uncle Black had given him an item that could summon a primordial ape at the most crucial moment. Now, Qin Wenyan naturally understood that this primordial ape was none other than a sealed astral warbeast. It was a life-saving treasure that Uncle Black had given him. The crimson blood thunder hawk and the silvery rock lay on the left and right of Qin Wenyan. The golden primordial ape stood up, but its head was already beneath Qin Wenyan. Qin Wenyan stretched out his left hand, gently stroking the head of the golden primordial ape, as well as the back of the crimson blood thunder hawk. The astral war beasts inclined their heads slightly, glancing at him, as though they possessed emotions. These were the astral war beasts he had summoned, and their hearts and minds were connected to his. Behind Qin Wenyan, the purgatory vermilion bird let out a long screech. Momentarily, the astral war beasts lowered their heads, as though they had sensed the majesty of a king. Upon seeing this, Qin Wenyan could only smile bitterly. After which, the purgatory vermilion bird flapped its wings, flinging the body of the silvery rock away as it lay beside Qin Wenyan. "Are you for real or fake? Why do you look so real?" Qin Wenyan could feel the heat radiating from the purgatory vermilion bird as he gently stroked its forehead. The purgatory vermilion bird inclined its head and let out a few screeches as it flapped its wings, as though it wanted to soar into the skies. "You want to bring me away from here?" Qin Wenyan asked in a low voice. The purgatory vermilion bird let out a low cry as it nodded its head. Fine. Qin Wenyin stood up and stepped onto the back of the Purgatory Vermilion Bird. Instantly, the Purgatory Vermilion Bird soared into the skies, arcing through the air with lightning speed as it sped towards the horizon. The golden primal ape stomped on the ground in a frenzy, chasing after the Purgatory Vermilion Bird. The Crimson Blood Thunderhawk and the Silvery Rock carried the blue-scaled Flood Dragon and the Silver-Armored Bear King as they soared into the skies, following after the Purgatory Vermilion Bird. In the center of the Vermilion Bird formation, there was a demonic mountain peak that seemed to be connected to the heavens. At this moment, two silhouettes appeared in front of the mountain peak. These two were none other than Yao Jun and Peng Zhan. Yao Jun, ranked number 13 on the Heavenly Fate ranking, was from the Sky Demon sect. Peng Zhan, ranked number 14 on the Heavenly Fate ranking, was from the Beast King Hall. Both of them were Heaven's Chosen of the Demon Continent, and their rankings were equal. Both of them were extremely powerful, and every time they fought, there would be no clear victor or loser. But now, they were actually joining forces. The vermilion birds hovering above their backs were frenziedly rushing forward, slamming into the mountain walls, causing them to tremble violently. It was as though the vermilion birds wanted to break apart the mountain walls, yet they were unable to do so. The ancient luck of the vermilion bird must be extraordinary. Yao Jun's eyes were cold as he stared at Peng Zhan's vermilion bird. If he devoured it, would his vermilion bird be able to break through the mountain? At this moment, a long cry of a vermilion bird rang out from afar. Yao Jun and Peng Zhan turned their heads, only to see the silhouette of a vermilion bird whistling through the air. This vermilion bird was covered in purgatory flames, incomparably terrifying as its demonic chi towered up into the skies. What was even more shocking was that on the back of the vermilion bird, there was a young man standing there, like the sovereign of all demons. Below the vermilion bird, on the ground, the golden primal ape traversed a vast distance with every step it took, causing the earth to tremble violently, as though the mountains were about to crumble apart. Beside the vermilion bird, the crimson blood thunderhawk and the silvery rock arced through the skies. It's him! Yao Jun stared at the scene in front of him, his heart pounding wildly. It was Qin Wendian again. This person was like a demon, even more demonic and stronger than him and Peng Zhan. The purgatory vermilion bird roared, causing Yao Jun and Peng Zhan's vermilion bird to hurriedly evade. After which, the purgatory vermilion bird transformed into a sharp blade, directly slamming into the mountain rampart. Rumbling sounds rang out unceasingly as the golden primal ape rushed forth to help, frenziedly attacking. Gigantic boulders tumbled down from the mountain peak as blood flowed from the forehead of the purgatory vermilion bird. However, it didn't seem to be tired at all. It continued slamming into the mountain rampart relentlessly. Finally, a shrill cry rang out as the mountain rampart split apart, revealing a gigantic cavern. Qin Wenyin squatted down, gently caressing the purgatory vermilion bird's forehead. The purgatory vermilion bird inclined its head, its baleful aura was now incomparably docile, its sharp eyes gleaming with a hint of pride. Thank you for your hard work. Qin Wenyin rubbed the center of the purgatory vermilion bird's forehead as he continued forward. Wait a minute. Peng Zhan coldly snorted. Qin Wendian turned his head, his demonic gaze sweeping over to Peng Zhan. After which, Peng Zhan laughed malevolently. Yao Jun, this person helped the two of us, should we thank him? Yao Jun's countenance stiffened as he coldly laughed in his heart. This Peng Zhan wanted to swallow Qin Wendian's ancient luck. Chapter 371. Qin Wendian's gaze swept past Peng Zhan as rumbling sounds echoed out. The golden primal ape stomped on the ground, while the crimson blood thunder hawk arced through the air in a beautiful arc, flying towards Peng Zhan. Peng Zhan's demonic chi gushed forth as his astral souls descended. His entire person exuded a terrifying aura. However, at this moment, a terrifying light shone from the center of Qin Wendian's brows. Instantly, Peng Zhan's countenance turned incredibly unsightly to behold. He blasted out with his palm, but Yao Jun discovered that Peng Zhan's attack had landed on an illusory space. There was nothing there at all. What's going on? Peng Zhan's heart trembled as a terrifying sense of danger bore down on him. Just when he wanted to evade, a thunderous boom rang out as the terrifying palm imprint of the golden primal ape slammed into his body. In an instant, Peng Zhan was flung through the air as a bolt of lightning blasted into his body. Peng Zhan's silhouette was blasted far away, vanishing from sight. Yao Jun's eyes flashed with shock as his countenance turned incredibly unsightly. Initially, he thought that he would still be able to fight against Qin Wenyin. But now that he saw the current situation, he realized that if he fought against Qin Wenyin, the consequences would be extremely dire. He would be completely suppressed, just like Peng Zhan. At this moment, bewilderment could be seen in his eyes. In that instant earlier, why did Peng Zhan's attack make such a huge mistake? That shouldn't be the case. Peng Zhan's strength wasn't any weaker than his, and his vision was extremely sharp. How could he make such a fatal mistake? He cast a deep glance at Qin Wenyin, feeling that this person was getting more and more mysterious and unfathomable. Qin Wenyin glanced at him before entering the cave together with the purgatory vermilion bird. The golden primal ape, the blue-scaled flood dragon and the silver-armored bear king stood outside the cave, guarding it, not allowing anyone to enter. Yao Jun understood in his heart that this ancient luck was no longer fated with him. Qin Wenyin stepped into the cavern. Earlier, the cavern was dimly lit, but as he continued forward, the surroundings gradually brightened up. After a period of time, Qin Wenyin arrived at a palace. His gaze froze as a strange light flickered in his demonic eyes. There was actually a palace hidden within the cave. The enormous palace was extremely vast and dignified. It emitted a ghastly coldness, and there seemed to be a terrifying demonic aura hidden within. There were many statues in the palace. All of these statues were actually in the form of demonic beasts, exuding a demonic aura. It was extremely terrifying. Kacha! A light sound rang out, causing Qin Wenyian's heart to tremble. After which, he turned his gaze in a certain direction as a terrifying light flashed in his eyes. He saw that in that direction, there was an ancient demon statue. It was a fearsome devil wind tiger. This statue was actually slowly shedding its outer shell, revealing its malevolent demonic features. Its eyes gleamed with a cold light. The statue had come to life. Cracking sounds rang out continuously as the outer shells of the statues fell off one by one. Countless demonic eyes stared at Qin Wenyin as a terrifying demonic aura swept across the sky. It was incomparably terrifying. The purgatory vermilion bird let out a shrill screech, while the crimson blood thunder hawk and silvery rock howled in rage. However, the demonic aura of those demonic beasts grew stronger and stronger as the statues transformed into demons. Qin Wenyian's gaze was ice-cold as he floated up into the air. Abruptly, those demonic beasts all started to move, rushing towards Qin Wenyin. Just the violent demonic aura they exuded was enough to strike fear into the hearts of the spectators. The body of the purgatory vermilion bird was bathed in flames, resembling the flames of purgatory. It let out a long screech as it dashed out. Everywhere the purgatory flames passed by, the bodies of the demonic beasts were instantly set ablaze. At the same time, the wings of the purgatory vermilion bird turned a terrifying golden color, causing blood to splatter everywhere it passed by. However, it was unknown how many demonic beast statues there were in the ancient palace. Right now, all of them had transformed into demonic beasts, unleashing attacks in a frenzy. The crimson blood thunder hawk and silvery rock also rushed out, engaging in a bloody battle against the demonic beasts. At the same time, some of the demonic beasts rushed to the side of Qin Wenyin, only to see Qin Wenyin stomping on the ground as his palms blasted out in a frenzy. In an instant, one of the demonic beasts was shattered into pieces. How can this be? I can't inscribe divine inscriptions? Qin Wenyian's gaze was ice-cold. He didn't know what material the ground was made of, but there was actually no way for him to inscribe divine inscriptions. Since this was the case, he could only rely on his own methods to deal with these countless demonic beasts. The purgatory vermilion bird, crimson blood thunder hawk and silvery rock were all engaged in a frenzied battle. All of them were extremely powerful, especially the purgatory vermilion bird. The flames on its body were akin to the flames of purgatory, and its might was extremely terrifying. Its wings were like the sharpest blades in the world, capable of lacerating the bodies of demonic beasts. However, the demonic beasts here were all incomparably frenzied, and they didn't care about their own lives as they lunged forward. A terrifying devilish ape directly descended from the skies, slamming into the body of the purgatory vermilion bird. However, such a fearsome attack similarly injured the purgatory vermilion bird. This scene repeated itself over and over again. Before long, the silver rock was torn apart and died. Soon after, the crimson blood thunder hawk died as well. Qin Wentian's third eye glowed with a brilliant light as a fearsome pressure bore down on him. His body was enveloped by a layer of demonic armor, and all the demonic beasts that came his way were all slain by him. Qin Wenyin continued advancing, and everywhere he passed by, the corpses of the demonic beasts piled up. The purgatory vermilion bird seemed to understand Qin Wentian's intentions. It also opened up a path for Qin Wenyin. Along the way, it killed an unknown number of demonic beasts. Blood seeped out from the corners of its mouth, dripping down unceasingly. Yet its eyes were as cold as ever, as though it was a god of death from purgatory. A human and a demonic beast, not a single demonic beast could obstruct them. Finally, they arrived at the front of the Great Hall. A terrifying ancient demonic beast floated in the air, and it was actually the silhouette of a vermilion bird. The aura it exuded was incomparably terrifying, causing people to feel a chill down their spines. It stared at Qin Wenyin and the purgatory vermilion bird, its body brimming with killing intent. The purgatory vermilion bird roared, wanting to rush out. However, Qin Wenyin interjected, "Let me." As the sound of his voice faded, Qin Wenyin stepped out. This was the cavern he created, and thus he should be the one to face this test. The purgatory vermilion bird turned around, facing the demonic beasts that were still rushing towards it. Its gaze was as cold as ever. Qin Wentian's third eye opened, and a terrifying light flashed past. However, the purgatory vermilion bird was still coldly staring at him, as though it wasn't affected in the slightest. Immune. Qin Wentian's countenance stiffened. This terrifying purgatory vermilion bird was actually immune to his eye technique. Poochie! The purgatory vermilion bird spat out a breath of frigid air, as though it came from the depths of hell itself. Qin Wentian's palms slammed out, and the silhouette of a dragon violently shot out. However, that dragon seemed to be frozen solid, and even Qin Wenyin could feel a surge of frigid air flowing through his arm, causing the circulation of his astral energy to be obstructed as a terrifying phantasm aura invaded his body. What a terrifying phantasm aura! Is this the test of ancient luck? Qin Wentian's demonic gaze was as resolute as ever. Behind him, the purgatory vermilion bird frenziedly attacked, blocking all the demonic beasts for him. Even though it was injured, it didn't retreat in the slightest. It was as though it knew how terrifying the purgatory vermilion bird was, and it didn't want its master to be distracted in the slightest. Qin Wenyin stared at the purgatory vermilion bird as he sent out another palm strike. Instantly, the heartbreak bell appeared. However, the purgatory vermilion bird continued to stare fixedly at him, unmoving, as though it wasn't affected in the slightest. This made Qin Wenyin realize that the only way to kill the purgatory vermilion bird was to attack with brute force. There were many innate techniques that the purgatory vermilion bird was immune to. Behind him, the purgatory vermilion bird's furious roars echoed out. Blood dripped from its body as it turned into a blur, blocking all the demonic beasts, preventing them from getting close to Qin Wenyin. It was a pity that the people in the outside world couldn't see what was going on. Otherwise, they would definitely be shocked. The ferocious vermilion bird had actually transformed into a true vermilion bird, and it was actually so loyal to its master that it would risk its life to protect him, so that they could obtain the ancient luck that belonged to them. The people in the outside world didn't know what kind of ancient luck the participants had obtained, or whether they had succeeded or failed, because they couldn't see it. Qin Wenyin stared at the vermilion bird as he walked out. A terrifying demonic chi gushed forth from him, enveloping his entire body. His entire person radiated a demonic luster, and his eyes were incomparably cold. The purgatory vermilion bird stared coldly at Qin Wenyin as it breathed out a stream of phantasm chi that wrapped around Qin Wentian's body, causing Qin Wentian's body to freeze and be corroded by the phantasm chi. However, his footsteps were still as firm as ever, as if nothing could stop his will. The phantasm chi was about to envelop Qin Wentian's body. Seeing that Qin Wenyin was still walking forward, the phantasm vermilion bird's expression grew cold to the extreme. It dashed forward and landed on Qin Wentian's body in the blink of an eye. Its claw tore through everything and directly grabbed onto Qin Wentian's body. The phantasm chi madly penetrated Qin Wentian's body, giving him a feeling of death. However, Qin Wentian's hand grabbed onto its body, and he punched out with his right fist. In this instant, he had gathered all of his strength into his fist. The phantasm vermilion bird let out a furious roar as it tried to break free. However, a loud bang rang out as its body was struck by a powerful blow, causing its body to turn illusory. "Swallow it," Qin Wenyin said coldly. The purgatory vermilion bird immediately swooped over, opened its beak, and swallowed the phantasm vermilion bird bit by bit. The phantasm vermilion bird tried to resist, but Qin Wenyin grabbed its body and punched it over and over again. Finally, the purgatory vermilion bird swallowed the phantasm vermilion bird. When it turned its gaze back to Qin Wenyin, it let out a long cry. The demonic beasts behind it finally stopped moving, and their bodies condensed back into statues. There seemed to be a layer of phantasm chi covering Qin Wentian's body, and there was a horrifying wound on his chest. The purgatory vermilion bird meekly stroked the wound, only to see Qin Wenyin smiling as he said, "I'm fine." After speaking, he continued walking forward. Ahead of him, an ancient pathway appeared at the end of the palace. Qin Wenyin followed the pathway and soon, he saw a golden-colored stone rampart that glowed with a golden light. 3 words were carved at the top of the stone wall: "Fiend Transformation." Fiend Transformation. Qin Wenyin drew in a deep breath. So this was the case. Back then, the Azure Emperor must have come here to seize the ancient luck. The Fiend Transformation art originated from here. Chapter 372. Qin Wentian's countenance was akin to that of a demon as he stared ahead, feeling extremely shocked in his heart. After a few thousand years, he and the Azure Emperor had actually obtained the same ancient luck and arrived at the same place. It was as though it was fated. However, if this place only contained the ancient luck of the Fiend Transformation art, wouldn't it be a waste for them to obtain his ancient luck? Qin Wenyin didn't have such thoughts. His eyes shone with a bright light as he stared at the golden stone rampart in front of him. At the center of his brows, numerous demonic beasts could be seen materializing there. This was the most perfect fiend transformation art. The inheritance the Azure Emperor left for him back then couldn't possibly be the same as the golden stone wall before him. At this moment, Qin Wenyin suddenly understood. So it turned out that the countless ancient demonic beasts outside, although it was a test, wasn't it all for the sake of completing the fiend transformation art? Fate is decided by the heavens. Since I'm already here, how can I return empty-handed? I shall complete the fiend transformation art right here. Qin Wenyin murmured, after which, he gently caressed the purgatory vermilion bird beside him. Although it was injured, its eyes were as gentle as ever as it rubbed its head against Qin Wentian's chest. Not only that, after devouring the phantasm vermilion bird, the purgatory vermilion bird's luster seemed to have changed, becoming even more sinister. Have a good rest, I need to recover from my injuries as well. After that, let's go and clean up the ancient hall outside. Qin Wenyin slowly spoke. The purgatory vermilion bird nodded its head and lay on the ground, closing its eyes as though it was meditating. Qin Wenyin also sat down cross-legged. After killing the phantasm vermilion bird, he was also injured, and his injuries weren't light. The phantasm vermilion bird was extremely powerful and was immune to most attacks. Hence, Qin Wenin used the most tyrannical method to slay it. Naturally, if it wasn't for the fact that the purgatory vermilion bird was injured from protecting him, Qin Wenin wouldn't have taken such a risk. After recovering from his injuries, the man and the demonic demon returned to the temple. Cracking sounds could be heard as the statues began to shatter, and demonic qi once again filled the air. Qin Wentian's eyes gleamed with an incomparably demonic light. Slowly walking forward, he actually walked towards the center of the great hall. When he saw a statue shattering into pieces, an ancient demon appeared. He directly grabbed out with his palm as a terrifying might gushed forth from him, wanting to destroy the ancient demon and seize its spirit. 4 hours later, both Qin Wentian and the purgatory vermilion bird were covered in blood. At this moment, Qin Wentian was sitting cross-legged as boundless demonic qi gushed into his body. His body was like a bottomless pit, frenziedly devouring the demonic qi. The demonic qi from his body grew increasingly denser and more terrifying. 3 days later, there were no more demonic beasts on the ground of the ancient palace. In fact, the demonic qi in the great hall had all disappeared, all gathered on the body of the young man sitting cross-legged. The demonic qi around him towered up into the sky. It was unknown how terrifying he was. Within the vermilion bird formation, time flowed by as the number of participants decreased. There were less than 100 remaining. The spectators in the outside world were still paying close attention to what was happening within the vermilion bird formation. There were less than 100 participants, yet half of them had already comprehended second-level mandates. This was definitely an extremely terrifying number, far exceeding their understanding. Such a situation had never occurred before in any of the previous ranking battles. In the past, those who had comprehended second-level mandates could easily rank within the top 20, or even higher. But this year, the heavenly fate rankings had changed. Not only were there less than 360 participants remaining, the ancient luck of the vermilion bird formation couldn't even contain 100 participants. The weaker participants were all eliminated. Those who remained were all growing stronger and stronger. Could it be that there was some kind of destiny that allowed those who remained to bathe in ancient luck? Naturally, what the spectators paid more attention to were those who managed to find their ancient luck. Although there were still quite a few remaining, those who could monopolize the ancient luck were exceedingly few. There were only a total of 9. Initially, Yao Jun or Peng Zhan would have a chance. However, Qin Wenin beat them to it, injuring Peng Zhan and snatching the ancient luck away. After that, there was no one else who could monopolize the ancient luck. These 9 people were Chen Wang, Sherpadian, Si Qiong, Zhan Chen, Emperor Azure, Qin Zheng, Yun Mingyi, Mu Feng and Qin Wenin. Although the spectators didn't know what they were experiencing, they could faintly sense that these 9 would become the most dazzling contenders of the heavenly fate rankings. Not only that, they might even be able to rank within the top 9. Chen Wang, Sherpadian, Zhan Chen and Emperor Azure were all within expectations. Mu Feng was originally ranked at the top of the heavenly fate rankings, so it was only natural that he would erupt in power after his temperament underwent a huge change. Si Qiong, Qin Zheng, Yun Mingyi and Qin Wendian were the 4 dark horses. Naturally, other than these 9, there were also others who had their own good fortune. It was just that they were all fighting over it, and it wasn't like the 9 who monopolized the ancient luck. Not only that, nobody knew what they were experiencing and what changes would happen after they exited the heavenly fate rankings. These 9 people were already extremely powerful. Even Qin Wentian, who was initially looked down upon, had domineeringly slaughtered Yang Fan and the others, and even looked down on Peng Zhan. From this, one could see how strong they were. The strong would only grow stronger. Emo Qingcheng has also found her own ancient luck. At this moment, the gazes of the spectators froze as they stared at the disappearing silhouette of Emo Qingcheng. Emo Qingcheng became the 10th contender, yet she was different from the rest. She didn't obtain as much ancient luck as the other 9 contenders, allowing the vermilion bird to grow stronger. Yet, she still managed to find her own ancient luck. Nobody knew why. Could it be that because she was beautiful, the vermilion bird formation would take care of her? That was obviously impossible. Only Mo Qingsheng herself would know the true reason. Senior Tianji, how many contenders do you think will remain in the Vermilion Bird formation for this ranking battle? Someone in the air asked Old Man Tianji. The fate of Grand Xia has changed, this old man doesn't know either. However, how many contenders will remain in the Heavenly Fate rankings? If there's only one contender left, then the Heavenly Fate rankings will only contain one contender. Old Man Tianji slowly replied. His eyes were filled with wisdom, and nobody knew what he was thinking. However, this time around, the number of contenders in the Vermilion Bird formation is evidently much stronger compared to the previous years. This means that among these contenders, there's a high possibility that they would be able to influence the fate of Grand Xia in the future. Old Man Tianji continued, his words causing the spectators to be startled. Fate and destiny were boundlessly mysterious. Nobody could say for sure whether or not it truly existed. However, the Venerate Heavens sect had existed for countless years, and had always been able to peer into the constellations of the heavens and earth. Old Man Tianji's words couldn't be false. There's a beginning and end to the heavens and earth. The Venerate Heavens sect has existed for countless years, and had always been able to peer into the constellations of Grand Xia. Old Man Tianji's words couldn't be false. Old Man Tianji's words were filled with profound mysteries. Nobody could understand what he meant. The various transcendent powers all had their own thoughts. The gazes of those from the Chun clan sharpened. One of them laughed. Senior's words make sense. These contenders are all extraordinary, and Chen Wang was the first to obtain ancient luck. I wonder if he would be able to influence Grand Xia in the future. This person was none other than Chen Wang's uncle, and he had high hopes for Chen Wang. There's no such thing as first or last. Those from the Shi clan coldly spoke. Evidently, they weren't convinced by the words of the other party. If what Old Man Tianji said was true, that the fate of Grand Xia was about to change, and the person who could change the fate of Grand Xia was within the Vermilion Bird formation, they would naturally rather believe that the person who could change the fate of Grand Xia was none other than their Shi clan's Shirpatian. Nonsense! Those from the Hua clan coldly snorted. Hua Shaoqing wasn't able to obtain ancient luck. They were naturally unhappy in their hearts. Not only that, what sort of character was Hua Taishu? How could he be any weaker than these people before them? This Chen Wang was also the most dazzling character here, but in the past, when did Hua Taishu ever manage to rise up? As long as Hua Taishu existed, Chen Wang would forever be number 2. If these contenders could change the fate of Grand Xia, what about Hua Taishu? Those from the Hua clan had always believed that Hua Taishu would be able to influence the future of Grand Xia, becoming an extremely important character. He would also be the key to breaking through the current limitations of their Hua clan. Each of them had their own thoughts, but those in the Vermilion Bird formation naturally didn't know. Below the reefs, a fat silhouette leapt up as he howled in rage. I, fatty, have finally broken through to the highest level of Yunfu. So it turned out that during these days, Fan Le knew that his current level of strength was too low, and so he chose to focus on his cultivation until he broke through to the 8th level of Yunfu. After that, he consumed the limit break pellet and broke through to the 9th level of Yunfu. The pitiful fatty still didn't know that the outside world had already undergone a heaven-shaking, earth-toppling transformation. Filled with confidence, Fatty Fan Le no longer dodged. He was prepared to teach those in the Vermilion Bird formation a good lesson, letting them know of Fan Li's might. Very swiftly, Fan Li's wish was fulfilled. He met a person who had once been defeated by Qin Zheng, and was even forced to flee miserably from Mu Feng's hands. The enraged Wang Ju used his most ferocious attacks to blast Fan Le away. Fan Le had no idea what had just happened. Why was the situation different from what he had imagined? Wasn't the genius Fan Le supposed to shake the entire Heavenly Fate rankings? Why was he blasted away before he even had a chance to show off his skills? However, when he exited the Vermilion Bird formation, he seemed to have understood something. However, why did Chen Wang, Qin Wenin, and the rest also disappear? Qin Wenin was still in the ancient hall. Currently, his fiend transformation art had finally reached the 3rd level, the demonic transformation realm. With an intention of his will, a pair of terrifying golden-winged rock wings appeared behind Qin Wentian's back. His silhouette flickered as he appeared in front of the golden stone rampart. At this moment, the ancient characters on the stone rampart began to transform. The golden light flashed, so blinding that Qin Wentian's eyes gleamed with sharpness as he stared at the transformations on the stone rampart. Finally, a majestic scene appeared on the stone rampart. Over there, a silhouette could be seen standing in the middle of a vast land. He was chanting, emitting a mystical melody that caused the heavens and earth to change color. Demonic chi from all 8 directions converged on him as astral light cascaded downwards. That mystical melody gradually grew louder and louder, causing the earth to tremble as the astral light in the skies shone resplendently. In an instant, a boundless amount of energy bore down on this person. His body began to transform: vermilion bird wings, vermilion bird golden body, vermilion bird talons. Terrifying rumbling sounds rang out in Qin Wentian's ears, yet he continued chanting. Abruptly, a long cry of a vermilion bird rang out, causing the heavens and earth to tremble. That person soared up into the skies, transforming into a vermilion bird that soared up into the clouds. The chant of the demonic divinity, ancient, will pierces the heavens, gathering demonic chi from all 8 directions, devouring demonic chi from the starry skies, connecting with the demonic divinities of the 8 directions. I am fated to become a demon. An ancient voice rang out in Qin Wentian's ears, causing Qin Wentian's heart to tremble. This art, the demonic divinity sacrificial transformation, could transform one into a demonic divinity's spirit, irreversible. Chapter 373. Irreversible. Qin Wentian's heart trembled. After a moment of silence, he drew in a deep breath. So it turned out that after the fiend transformation art, there was an even more terrifying demonic divinity sacrificial rite that would only appear after he had cultivated the 3rd level of the fiend transformation art. Back then, the Azure Emperor must have missed it because he didn't cultivate the fiend transformation art beforehand. However, although there was the demonic divinity sacrificial rite, this art was too tyrannical. The chant of the demonic divinity was so powerful that it could communicate with the demonic divinities from all directions, transforming a human into a demon. Not only that, becoming the spirit of a demonic divinity meant that in the future, there was a chance for one to become a demonic divinity. The vermilion bird was undoubtedly a demonic divinity, the totem of Grand Xia. Qin Wentian felt a sense of frustration in his heart. He gently stroked the wings of the purgatory vermilion bird as he spoke in a low voice. This art is heaven-defying, transforming a human into a demon, becoming the spirit of a demonic divinity. Humans are the spirit of all living beings. How terrifying would their cultivation be after transforming into a demon? However, how can I transform into a demon? As he thought of this, Qin Wentian shook his head. He stared at the purgatory vermilion bird and asked, "Don't tell me you want me to accompany you to soar through the heavens and earth after I transform into a demon?" The purgatory vermilion bird felt wronged when it heard Qin Wentian's words. It continued to rub its head against Qin Wentian's chest. Qin Wentian seemed to understand the vermilion bird's intentions. He calmly replied, "I won't blame you, but it's a pity. The ancient luck within the vermilion bird formation is so powerful, and this demonic divinity sacrificial rite is also a heaven-defying art. If someone was willing to cultivate it, they would surely be able to transcend the heavens. However, I'm not willing to cultivate it. It's such a waste." The purgatory vermilion bird spoke in a low voice. Qin Wentian continued, "Although I'm not willing to transform into a demon, since I've encountered this art, I still have to learn it. In the future, if I meet someone who's fated with me, I can bestow it to them." As he finished speaking, Qin Wentian sat down cross-legged and focused on comprehending the song of the demonic god, using his ancient will to connect to the heavens. Immersed in cultivation, Qin Wentian had no idea how much time had passed. After a long time, he began to chant in a low voice, like the voice of a demon god. It was deep and powerful, and seemed to originate from ancient times. It wasn't the voice of a human, but contained a terrifying might that connected heaven and earth. The entire palace trembled slightly as boundless demonic chi gathered with Qin Wenyan at the center. Inside Qin Wenyan's body, his bloodline was surging, becoming more and more terrifying. That dormant bloodline was actually showing signs of awakening. Terrifying rumbling sounds thundered out as Qin Wenyan's bloodline roared madly, emitting a terrifying sound that reverberated throughout the entire palace. The purgatory vermilion bird that was lying on the ground beside Qin Wenyan stood up, staring at Qin Wenyan as it let out a long screech. A resplendent light shone in its eyes as it stared at Qin Wenyan, filled with shock. Qin Wenyan continued chanting, his bloodline transformed into a terrifying vortex that revolved frenziedly. Abruptly, the terrifying bloodline within Qin Wenyan's body congregated into the form of a gigantic primordial demon. A pair of eyes that could shake one's soul opened abruptly, terrifying to the extreme. Who was it that was using the power of chanting to summon a primordial demon? A peerlessly terrifying pressure permeated the air. The purgatory vermilion bird actually prostrated itself on the ground, struggling to raise its head. Its gaze was fixed on Qin Wenyan's body, and it was unknown how shocked it was. That oppressive might was too terrifying. Too weak. A low voice rang out in the depths of Qin Wenyan's heart. After which, the pressure gradually dissipated, and the bloodline within Qin Wenyan's body gradually regained its calmness, no longer as violent as before. Abruptly, Qin Wenyan's eyes snapped open as a terrifying demonic light gleamed within. His gaze was incomparably sharp, and his forehead was drenched in sweat. It disappeared, Qin Wenyan mumbled to himself. Earlier, he clearly heard a voice in his heart saying that he was too weak. After which, that terrifying primordial demon continued to slumber. It was as though with his current strength, he didn't have the qualifications to activate the power of this bloodline. He was simply too weak. Who would have thought that the demonic divinity sacrificial transformation would actually activate the power of my bloodline? Seems like it's truly an ancient demonic bloodline, and an extremely powerful one at that. If not, it wouldn't have been activated by the demonic divinity chant. Qin Wenyan silently mused, as he grew even more curious about his origins. Back then when he was in a desperate situation of death, he had activated his bloodline once, but even then he only managed to activate a trace of its power. His dual bloodlines contained boundless potential, but sadly he was too weak and had no way to unearth it. Was a cultivator at the peak of Yuanfu too weak? In that case, what cultivation level could he reach in order to meet the minimum requirement? Heavenly Dipper realm, or the even stronger celestial phenomenon realm? Just as Qin Wenyan was contemplating, rumbling sounds echoed out as the entire palace started to sink downwards. Qin Wenyan's eyes flickered as he inclined his head and stared at the skies. A terrifying beam of light directly pierced through the air, and right there, Qin Wenyan could see the gigantic ancient demonic vermilion bird hovering above the vermilion bird formation. The spirit of an ancient demonic beast, controlling the vermilion bird formation. It was as though it was a true life form. As the beam of light shot out, everything seemed to be on the verge of being annihilated. The entire palace transformed into golden light, as though it was about to turn into dust. Qin Wenyan still stood there, but at this moment, the palace disappeared, as though the vermilion bird formation was undergoing a transformation. Since you are fated to transform into a demon, you can control the spirit of the vermilion bird. In the ancient kingdom, you can do whatever you want. A voice filled with temptation rang out in Qin Wenyan's ears, causing Qin Wenyan's heart to tremble. His eyes gleamed with sharpness as he inclined his head and stared at the ancient demonic vermilion bird in the air. The demonic divinity sacrificial transformation required the chanting of the demonic beasts to reach the heavens, gathering the power of the demonic beasts from all directions. And in the vermilion bird formation, there was a spirit of the vermilion bird. Since he was fated to transform into a demon, his ancient will could reach the heavens and borrow its strength. Qin Wenyan turned his gaze onto the purgatory vermilion bird beside him. His gaze was filled with gentleness as he rubbed its head. So the ancient luck you bestowed upon me is so powerful. Sadly, I'm not willing to transform into a demon. The purgatory vermilion bird stared at Qin Wenin with a gentle look in its eyes. It lightly shook its head, as though it didn't care about Qin Wentian's thoughts. If Qin Wenian wasn't willing to transform into a demon, it wouldn't force the issue. The spectators in the outside world were all shocked to the extreme. They saw that the 10 people who had inherited their ancient luck had all appeared. The area they were in had already been destroyed, and even the ancient vermilion bird formation was undergoing a transformation. Right now, only 36 people remained in the vermilion bird formation. These 36 people were all much stronger compared to the time when the ranking battle began. Especially those 10, their auras had undergone a drastic transformation, becoming even more terrifying. For the next 3 years, only 36 people will be able to enter the heavenly fate rankings. At this moment, Old Man Tianji's voice rang out in the air, fulfilling his promise. The number of people remaining in the vermilion bird formation would be the same as the number of people remaining in the heavenly fate rankings. Now that the vermilion bird formation had been dispelled, there were only 36 people remaining in the heavenly fate rankings. This meant that the 36 people standing in front of them were the next top 36 rankers of the heavenly fate rankings. In the future, if someone wanted to enter, they would have to defeat them first. Chen Wang, what kind of ancient luck did he obtain? How terrifying! At this moment, the gazes of the crowd turned over, only to see Chen Wang sitting cross-legged, the great solar universe energy radiating from his body. Behind him, a terrifying shadow of the sun floated in the air, as though he was about to condense into a great solar Dharma body. Just the radiance of the great solar Dharma body alone was enough to strike fear into the hearts of the spectators. Chen Wang's strength has always been tyrannical. Now, who can stop him? The hearts of the spectators murmured. For the ranking battle this time around, Chen Wang was undoubtedly the number one. It would be difficult for anyone to contend against him. Other than Chen Wang, Sherpadian, Zhan Chen, and the rest also had their own luck. The ranking battle this time around was extremely unusual, something that had never happened in the past. 10 people had all obtained a great amount of luck. Qin Wenin, the demonic qi exuding from him is terrifying. But now that Chen Wang is even stronger, he won't spare him. The gazes of the spectators shifted onto Qin Wenin, as well as the purgatory vermilion bird hovering above him. And indeed, at this moment, Chen Wang opened his eyes, staring at Qin Wenin. His eyes shone with the brilliance of the scorching sun. Qin Wenin had actually walked out of the cavern unscathed. Not only that, his demeanor had undergone a drastic change. The purgatory vermilion bird beside him had transformed into its true form, and he had also obtained ancient luck. But so what of it? Right now, there were only 36 of them left. Qin Wenin would die without a doubt. The vermilion bird formation had already dissipated. The space around them seemed to have shrunk, and in the center of it all, a resplendent vermilion bird arena platform could be seen hovering in the air, resembling the shape of a vermilion bird. This was the vermilion bird arena platform. The remaining 36 contenders, the top 36 of the heavenly fate rankings, were about to engage in the final battle. The spectators felt a sense of fervor in their hearts. It was as though they were witnessing an unprecedented ranking battle of the heavenly fate rankings. In the past 1,000 years, there had never been such a magnificent scene. Maybe what Old Man Tianji had said was true, the fate of Grand Xia was about to change. The heavens of Grand Xia were about to change. Old Man Tianji inclined his head, staring at the vermilion bird in the air. The eyes of the vermilion bird were gigantic, incomparably demonic. For thousands of years, this vermilion bird formation was the only place in Grand Xia that hadn't been broken. And now, there was finally a change to it. What would happen in the ranking battle this time around? Even Old Man Tianji had no way to predict. The top 36 of the heavenly fate rankings have already been determined. Everyone, it's about time for you all to take a break. At that moment, a voice rang out. Everyone looked over and saw that at the other end of the corridor, there was a middle-aged man standing in the air. Behind him, several silhouettes slowly rose up into the air. All of them were young and exuded an extraordinary aura. Since you all came to the ancient kingdom, you are naturally our guests. Naturally, we will treat you all well before we proceed with the final battle of the heavenly fate rankings. The middle-aged man slowly spoke, his words causing the hearts of the crowd to tremble. Guess? Since they were the guests, didn't that mean that they were the hosts? People from the ancient kingdom of Grand Xia. Qin Wenyin turned his gaze onto these people. Ouyang Guangxing had once told him that the people from the ancient kingdom of Grand Xia were extremely mysterious. Thousands of years ago, when the ancient kingdom collapsed, the 9 grand clans wouldn't leave behind any survivors. Hence, the identities of these people were extremely suspicious. Maybe the upper echelons of the various transcendent powers knew something. However, they were all tight-lipped about this, and it was a taboo. Chapter 374. Old Man Tianji and the other transcendent powers also stared at these newcomers, but they didn't have any expressions of surprise on their faces. It was as though they had long known of their existence. In fact, there were even some who frowned in displeasure. "It's good to take a break," Old Man Tianji calmly stated. "Seems like you can live for a while longer." Chen Wang stared at Qin Wenyin as he coldly spoke. Qin Wenyan's countenance was akin to that of a demon. His eyes flickered with a cold light, but no one could tell what he was thinking. Everyone stood up and continued their journey towards the ancient kingdom. Ouyang Guangxing came to Qin Wenyan's side as he asked, "How is it? It seems like your improvement isn't too bad." Qin Wenyan's eyes flashed with a hint of a smile. "Not too bad, but I feel that the one who has changed the most is you. Your demonic qi is so terrifying, you should have some ancient luck." Ouyang Guangxing laughed as he stared ahead. "Be careful of these people." Ahem. Qin Wenyin nodded his head, only to see the middle-aged man leading the group to a banquet hall. There were many silhouettes here, and there were beautiful serving girls serving the banquet. The middle-aged man stood at the head of the table, smiling as he spoke. "Everyone, please take a seat." The crowd sat down. Qin Wenyin sat at the back, Ouyang Guangxing sat on his right, and Mo Qingqing sat on his left. This scene caused a cold light to flash in Zhan Chen's eyes. Zhan Chen also had his own luck. "Si Qiong, how do you feel?" Beside the middle-aged man sat the dark horse Si Qiong, causing the crowd to be bewildered. So it turned out that Si Qiong was someone from the ancient kingdom. The ancient luck of Grand Xia is one of the strongest innate techniques outside of the 9 ultimate arts, Si Qiong replied, causing the middle-aged man's eyes to gleam with a bright light. Secret arts and innate techniques were all exceedingly powerful, especially the secret arts left behind by the ancient kingdom. They weren't made public, but they were definitely not any weaker than the 9 ultimate arts of Grand Xia. So it turned out that they were all hidden within the Vermilion Bird formation, and were controlled by the spirit of the Vermilion Bird. Luckily, they didn't forcefully destroy the Vermilion Bird formation back then. If not, they wouldn't be alive today. Qin Wenyan's heart trembled. The Fiend Transformation Art and Demonic Divinity Sacrificial Transformation Art were actually the secret arts of ancient Grand Xia? No wonder they were so terrifying. I won't hide anything from all of you. Our identities should already be known by all of your clans and powers. After the war in Grand Xia ends, you can go and inquire about our identities. After that, you can come to our ancient kingdom at any time and become one of us. The middle-aged man had a smile on his face as he continued. In addition, we are willing to use one of the 9 ultimate arts of ancient Grand Xia in exchange for the secret arts in your hands. Everyone's expression sharpened and a strange look flashed through their eyes. These people seem to have come for the secret divine ability. What do you think? The middle-aged man swept his gaze over, first landing on Chen Wang, before turning his gaze onto the others. Chen Wang fell silent for a moment. He originally had a high chance of becoming the top ranker of the heavenly fate rankings, and even his clan had pinned their hopes on him. Hence, he knew the secrets of the other party and knew who they were. Fine. Chen Wang contemplated for a moment before nodding his head. Exchanging for one of the 9 ultimate arts of Grand Xia wouldn't be a loss for him. Given the capabilities of the other party, if they wanted to forcefully snatch it away, he would have nothing to say. However, given the other party's status, their goal was to obtain all the valuable treasures of Grand Xia. As for the exchange, they knew of the 9 ultimate arts of Grand Xia. The great Solar Qin clan wasn't on the same level as them. Sherpadian also lightly nodded his head. Si Qiong originally already had a connection with them, and now that Zhan Chen and Emperor Azure had agreed as well, they couldn't help but feel anticipation in their hearts. Being able to obtain one of the 9 ultimate arts wasn't a loss for them at all. I need some time to consider. Qin Zheng calmly replied, his words causing the eyes of the middle-aged man to flicker with unhappiness. I need some time to consider as well, Yun Mingyi calmly replied, causing Qin Wenyin to turn his gaze onto her. Yun Mingyi had always given Qin Wenyin a mysterious feeling. She seemed to have some sort of connection with the ancient kingdom of Grand Xia, and at this moment, Yun Mingyi's beautiful eyes were also looking in his direction, filled with anticipation. Let me consider. Mo Qingqing spoke in a low voice. The eyes of the middle-aged man gradually turned cold when he heard that he had to consider 3 people consecutively. You guys better think this through. Si Qiong's eyes flickered with sharpness as he swept his gaze onto Yun Mingyi and Mo Qingqing. Qin Wendian frowned. I need some time to consider as well. As the sound of his voice faded, Si Qiong's eyes flickered with coldness as he stared at Qin Wenyin. Qin Wenyin truly didn't give him any face at all. The ranking battle for the Heavenly Fate rankings hasn't ended yet. Si Qiong's voice was ice-cold. I need to consider as well. Mu Feng faintly replied. The 5 people behind him all said that they would consider, causing the atmosphere of the banquet to turn extremely tense, as a sense of pressure could be felt. You guys don't know the immensity of the heavens and earth. A cold voice drifted out from the mouth of a young woman behind the middle-aged man. She exuded an aura of coldness as she swept her gaze over the crowd. Exchanging the ultimate arts of Grand Xia with you guys is already giving you guys a great deal of good fortune. Can't you guys even consider a matter of mutual consent? Isn't this the attitude of an equal exchange? Qin Zheng faintly spoke as he laughed. This banquet isn't a good one. Seems like it's best for us to bid farewell. Let's continue with the ranking battle. Qin Wendian calmly stated. After which, they slowly stood up, only to see Si Qiong rapping his fingers on the table in front of him as a cold smile appeared on his face. Wait a minute. Qin Wenyin and the rest turned their gazes onto Si Qiong, only to see Si Qiong lifting his head as a smile appeared on his face. If the ranking battle for the Heavenly Fate rankings really starts, I won't be polite to any of you. No need. Mu Feng's voice was filled with a sinister coldness as he stepped out. The smile on Si Qiong's face gradually turned cold. His lips were as sharp as the edge of a blade. In that case, let's meet again at the Heavenly Fate rankings. The banquet ended on an unhappy note. Qin Wenyin and the rest left, but Chen Wang, Sherpadian and the rest who had agreed to stay behind. Descendants of the Qin clan and Shi clan, all of you are not bad. Go back and ask your clans if you are willing to join us. Maybe one day, you guys will be able to emulate the splendor of your ancestors. The middle-aged man smiled as he glanced at Chen Wang and the rest. Let's put the ranking battle aside for now. You guys can focus on cultivating the ultimate arts of Grand Xia. Chen Wang and the rest frenziedly flickered. If they could cultivate the ultimate arts of Grand Xia, their combat prowess would be even stronger. At that time, they would be able to sweep aside all the others on the Heavenly Fate rankings. Right now, the existence that Chen Wang and the rest feared the most was none other than Si Qiong. So it turned out that Si Qiong was someone from Grand Xia. Zhan Chen and Emperor Azure also stayed behind. The middle-aged man smiled at the 2 of them as he calmly stated, for the ranking battle this time around, the 4 of you, in addition to Si Qiong's group of 5, shall fight for the top 5 positions. After speaking, the middle-aged man stood up. Follow me. Chen Wang and the rest followed him. As for Qin Wenyin and the rest, they returned to the incomplete vermilion bird formation and sat in their respective positions. Chen Wang and Sherpadian didn't return. What happened? The hearts of the spectators were filled with bewilderment. Old Man Tianji and the rest faintly understood something, but even for them, they didn't dare to interfere in this matter. The ranking battle this time around will definitely be the beginning of a change in Grand Xia's destiny. Old Man Tianji sighed in his heart when he saw this scene. The fate of Grand Xia was the irresistible force of fate. There was no way to change it. Just like back then when Grand Xia was destroyed, there was no way to reverse the situation. It was just that Old Man Tianji had no way to predict what the fate of Grand Xia would be like. What would the fate of the various transcendent powers be like? For the ranking battle this time around, how many people would be able to determine the fate of Grand Xia? Who would be the most influential characters in the future? Nobody knew. Even though Old Man Tianji was able to pry into astral fate, he wasn't a prophet. Currently, the most suitable candidate for the demonic star was none other than the demonic young man sitting there. He was once a nameless nobody, but now he finally stood out in the ranking battle. Time flowed by, Chen Wang and the rest still hadn't appeared. This caused the bewilderment in the hearts of the spectators to grow thicker and thicker. However, Old Man Tianji and the rest were incomparably calm, causing the spectators to wait patiently. Qin Wenin and the rest were similarly calm. They sat cross-legged and focused on their cultivation. They had no way to change the minds of others. They could only follow their hearts and live their lives with no regrets. Chen Wang and the rest had yet to return. There was a high possibility that they were cultivating the ultimate arts of Grand Xia. This caused Qin Wendian and the rest to feel immense pressure. Chen Wang, Sherpadian, Si Qiong, Zhan Chen and Emperor Azure were originally the strongest among the five. Now that they had the ultimate arts, they would definitely be even more terrifying. After a few more days passed, the sound of the wind whistling could be heard from afar as the middle-aged man appeared once again. Behind him, Chen Wang and the rest had smiles on their faces as they stared at the crowd, their eyes flickering with an unexcelled arrogance. Si Qiong turned his gaze over, staring in the direction of Old Man Tianji as he spoke. The fate of Grand Xia shall be decided in a single battle. Since this is a battle for heavenly fate, why should we be afraid of death? A single battle shall determine heavenly fate. You mean to say that life and death shall be decided by the heavenly fate? Old Man Tianji calmly asked. That's right, the losers aren't worthy of the heavenly fate. Si Qiong swept his gaze over to Qin Wenin and the rest, his eyes gleaming with sharpness. The fate of Grand Xia shall be decided today. Chen Wang stared at the skies, exuding an unexcelled aura. His gaze swept over to Qin Wenin and the rest as he spoke. The weak aren't worthy of the heavenly fate. What do you all think? Old Man Tianji turned to the others. In the past, if one was defeated in the heavenly fate ranking battle, they could simply concede. This way, the elites of Grand Xia wouldn't die. But today, Chen Wang, Si Qiong, and the rest had arrogantly declared that life and death would be decided. The spectators all stared at the surroundings of the arena platform, their hearts filled with shock. They could clearly feel the overwhelming confidence radiating from Chen Wang, and if Old Man Tianji were to nod his head, the battle today would definitely become the most intense and brutal battle in the history of the heavenly fate rankings. The ranking battle this time around had far exceeded the expectations of everyone. Yet, this made them even more filled with anticipation. Today, who would be the one to decide the heavenly fate of Grand Xia? Qin Wentian's demonic eyes landed on Chen Wang as a resplendent light flickered in his eyes. I hope all of you will remember the words you said today. The weak aren't worthy of the heavenly fate. I don't believe in the heavenly fate, so why would I fear a battle? Qin Wentian's voice was cold, incomparably demonic. Chapter 375. Countless gazes landed on the area around the arena platform. 36 silhouettes stood or sat on the stone platform, with the silhouettes of vermilion birds hovering behind them, exuding a baleful aura. These 36 people would be the most influential characters in Grand Xia in the future. Unless they were pushed off the heavenly fate rankings, they would remain in the top 10. Old Man Tianji's countenance was as calm as ever as he stared at the crowd. Chen Wang, Sherpadian, Si Qiong, Zhan Chen, Emperor Azure, Qin Zheng, Yun Mingyi, Mu Feng, Qin Wenian and Mo Qingqing. The 10 of you are temporarily ranked in the top 10. The remaining 26 will be ranked according to the amount of ancient luck obtained by the vermilion birds. Wang Ju will be ranked 11th, Hua Xiaoqing will be ranked 12th. As the sound of Old Man Tianji's voice faded, the crowd turned their gazes onto the vermilion birds behind them. If they wanted to change the rankings, they could only do so through battle. For the ranking battle this time around, we shall proceed from the bottom to the top. Starting from the bottom, you will challenge those in front of you. If you win, you will replace the previous ranking and have the opportunity to continue challenging them. If you lose, your ranking will be fixed, and you can challenge those above you. Old Man Tianji continued. At this moment, the 36 of you will be ranked 36. Xiao Du, you will be the first to challenge anyone you wish. Xiao Du was a member of the Xiao faction of the 9 Mystical Palace. The 9 Mystical Palace had high hopes for him when he participated in the ranking battle for the Heavenly Fate rankings. Not only that, he didn't disappoint them and managed to enter the Heavenly Fate rankings. Although the Heavenly Fate rankings only had a ranking of 36, he just so happened to be ranked last. His silhouette flickered as he gracefully landed on the arena platform. His gaze was incomparably sharp as he stared at the crowd below. Among the 35 people before him, he had fought against many of them before and knew that they were all extremely powerful characters. He didn't have the confidence to challenge any one of them. Finally, Xiao Du's gaze landed on Qin Wenian. This person was someone the 9 Mystical Palace wanted to capture, but who would have thought that he would disregard the safety of the Emperor Star Academy, choosing to participate in the Heavenly Fate rankings instead. What was even more surprising was that Qin Wenian had once been humiliated by Luo Qianqiu, and only after that did he rise up in anger and defeat Luo Qianqiu. At that time, he, Xiao Du, was already extremely famous in the 9 Mystical Palace. He wasn't someone that Luo Qianqiu could compare to. And now, Qin Wenian, whom he wouldn't even spare a glance at in the past, had actually managed to obtain a position within the top 10. Other than those who had clashed with Qin Wenian, they didn't know what had happened to the others. Xiao Du naturally didn't see Qin Wentian's tyrannical performance. As a heaven's chosen of the 9 Mystical Palace, he was naturally extremely arrogant. At this moment, his eyes gleamed with sharpness, as if he wanted to give it a try. If he defeated Qin Wenian, wouldn't he be able to directly enter the top 10? If he defeated Qin Wenian, then even if he was defeated by others, he wouldn't fall too far. This was an opportunity. Qin Wentian's aura was only at the 8th level of Yuanfu. Even if Qin Wentian's mandate had broken through to the 2nd level, he should still be able to contend against him. Qin Wen, get the hell up here. Xiao Du stared at Qin Wentian. It was as though a sharp sword had pierced through him. Qin Wentian inclined his head, his demonic eyes sweeping over to Xiao Du in an instant. Xiao Du felt his heart trembling when he saw Qin Wentian's eyes. However, he was also an extraordinary character. How could he allow Qin Wentian's gaze to affect his will to battle? Damn. There were those from the 9 Mystical Palace in the hallway. Never would they have imagined that Xiao Du would challenge Qin Wentian in his first battle. They had personally witnessed what happened in the Vermilion Bird Formation. Although Qin Wentian's cultivation base was only at the 8th level of Yuanfu, he still had the combat prowess to contend for the top 10 rankings. Xiao Du was far from being able to defeat him. Qian Mingyu also arrived with those from the Green Cloud Pavilion. When she saw this scene, she couldn't help but shake her head. This Xiao Du had overestimated his own capabilities. The disparity between the two of them was simply too great. They were simply not on the same level. Qin Wentian's silhouette flickered as he landed on the arena platform. His gaze swept over to Xiao Du as the coldness in his demonic eyes instantly seeped into him. Instantly, Xiao Du felt his entire body turning cold as he howled in agony. Die! Xiao Du howled as his astral souls erupted forth. His silhouette dashed towards Qin Wenian as he blasted out with his palms. It was as though an ancient thunderbolt had descended, directly imprinting itself onto Qin Wentian's chest. However, Qin Wenqian's chest seemed to be protected by a terrifying energy, preventing his palm strike from penetrating it. This defense. Xiao Du's countenance stiffened. He felt as though his palm strike had landed on an ancient demonic beast with an incomparably high defense. The defenses of demonic beasts were all exceedingly high. This was especially so for demonic beasts like the golden rock demonic beast, the Herculean ox demonic beast, or the golden demonic ape. At this moment, the feeling that Qin Wenyan gave Xiao Du was as though his attack had landed on the body of a terrifying demonic beast. Inclining his head, Xiao Du saw a pair of cold demonic eyes staring back at him, as a chill seeped into his heart. Peng! A terrifying force slammed into his chest. Xiao Du only felt his ribs shattering as his body was flung out of the arena platform before slamming heavily onto the ground. With a groan of misery, he coughed out a mouthful of fresh blood. When he inclined his head, he only saw that Qin Wenyan didn't even bother to glance at him. Qin Wenyan had already returned to his original location. Such a scene caused Xiao Du to feel shame in his heart. This was a battle of shame. Xiao Du, ranked 36th on the Heavenly Fate rankings. Old Man Tianji waved his hands as a resplendent ranking board floated in the air. The words Heavenly Fate were engraved on it, while the words Xiao Du were engraved at the bottom. Xiao Du ranked last. Qin Wenyan is proficient in strength and defense. Without a second-level mandate, there's no need to fight him. The spectators mused. Qin Wenyan should be able to obtain a position within the top 10. He who had stepped into the 8th level of Yuanfu already had such combat prowess. After which, another silhouette stepped onto the arena platform. This time around, he didn't challenge those who were ranked too highly, but rather, he chose to challenge those who were ranked near him. However, the result of the battle was still a loss, and his ranking was fixed at the 35th position. The battles continued on, and as the rankings continued, the silhouettes on the platform grew stronger and stronger. At the very end, even Xian Yan of the Mystic Maiden Palace was defeated, and her ranking was fixed at number 20. Her previous ranking was number 17, which meant that Xian Yan's ranking had actually dropped by 3 places. Next, it was the 19th-ranked Peng Zhan who challenged the 17th-ranked Ouyang Guangxing. The result of the battle caused the spectators to be extremely surprised. Ouyang Guangxing had an absolute advantage in terms of astral souls, and in addition to the fact that he had comprehended a second-level mandate of flames, as well as the power of his bloodline limit, he defeated the berserk Peng Zhan. Ouyang Guangxing's ranking was temporarily fixed at the 17th position, while Peng Zhan's ranking was fixed at the 19th position. After which, the 18th-ranked Yao Jun stepped onto the arena platform. His countenance was extremely unsightly as he stared at the silhouettes below. This time around, Yao Jun had high hopes for the Heavenly Fate rankings, hoping to obtain a position within the top 10. But now, he felt a sense of trepidation in his heart. The top 10 were Chen Wang, Sherpatian, Si Qiong, Zhan Chen, Emperor Azure, Qin Zheng, Yun Mingyi, Mu Feng, Qin Wenyan, and Mo Qingqing. These 10 were all extremely powerful. Even if it was Qin Wenyan, Yao Jun had personally witnessed how terrifying he could be. The one who was the weakest was actually Mo Qingqing. As for the 11th to 17th ranks, they were Wang Ju, Hua Shaoqing, Yan Cheng, Li Yu, the black-robed figure, Leng Hong, and Ouyang Guangxing. Wang Ju, Hua Shaoqing, Yan Cheng, and Li Yu. Other than Hua Shaoqing, the other 3 were all ranked within the top 10 in the previous Heavenly Fate rankings. But now, they were all squeezed out of the top 10. However, this didn't mean that they were weak. As for the black-robed figure and Leng Hong, they were both dark horses. Yao Jun had personally witnessed their battles and knew that they were extremely powerful. As for Ouyang Guangxing, he had personally witnessed his battle with Peng Zhan earlier. He had no confidence that he would be able to defeat Ouyang Guangxing. Drawing in a deep breath, Yao Jun's gaze finally landed on the black-robed figure. The strength of the black-robed figure was still a mystery to him, so he could only gamble on this battle. "I'll choose you." Yao Jun stared at the black-robed figure as a terrifying demonic qi gushed forth from him. His palms transformed into a terrifying demonic palm imprint, somewhat similar to Qin Wentian's fiend transformation art. Only, it wasn't as tyrannical as the fiend transformation art. The silhouette of the black-robed figure flickered as he landed on the vermilion bird arena. The devilish qi around him churned unceasingly. It was no longer a secret that this person cultivated the devil arts. Right now, the cultivation base of the black-robed figure was already at the 9th level of Yuanfu. Compared to the first time Qin Wenyan met him, he was much stronger. Qin Wenyan was also paying close attention to this battle. He had always been curious about the identity of the black-robed figure. Yao Jun's demonic form gave off a sense of terror, while the black-robed figure exuded a tyrannical aura. Both of them were surrounded by a violent current of qi. Howling sounds echoed out as Yao Jun released his astral souls. These were all demonic beast-type astral souls, capable of amplifying his attacks. His speed was extremely fast as he instantly dashed towards the black-robed figure. The black-robed figure didn't evade, he too rushed forwards. Yao Jun's countenance stiffened as a cold smile flickered in his eyes. Die! A terrifying demonic light manifested in his palms as he directly blasted out. The speed of his attack actually increased explosively, instantly slamming into the black-robed figure. This scene caused the countenances of the spectators to freeze. Yao Jun's countenance stiffened as he stared at the black-robed figure with an expression of shock on his face. She, who cultivated the devil arts, was actually a woman? An incomparably violent demonic energy gushed into the body of the black-robed figure, yet the eyes of the black-robed figure were as cold as ice. She acted as though nothing had happened as she blasted out a black-colored palm imprint. The terrifying devil palm imprint contained a terrifying demonic qi as it directly slammed into Yao Jun's head. With a thunderous boom, Yao Jun was instantly killed. A cold light flickered in the eyes of the black-robed figure as she walked down the arena platform, not saying a single word. Earlier, did he convert the demonic qi into his own attack? The spectators were all extremely shocked when they saw that. Yao Jun's attack was extremely terrifying, yet he actually disregarded it completely. Not only that, he actually converted the demonic qi into his own attack. How tyrannical was this? Who was this person exactly? Why did he kill Yao Jun out of anger? The countenances of those from the Sky Demons sect turned ashen. Yao Jun was ranked number 13 in the previous Heavenly Fate rankings. Yet now, he had actually fallen, let alone entering the top 10. He didn't even have the chance to touch the top 10. The ranking battle this time around was simply too intense. You're tuning in to the Passion Pages YouTube channel. We're so grateful for your support, and don't forget to subscribe to join us on this incredible journey through captivating stories. Your generosity through donations truly makes a world of difference, as it's the primary source of revenue that allows me to expand and enhance this channel for you. Thank you from the bottom of my heart for being a part of this adventure.